Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the highlight of the brand new football season, at least for me. We know that it starts with the NFL draft. In the 2025 draft, we've had all kinds of talk and clamor and conglomerations that have taken place going over the picks, who is in charge of making these selections, and what it's going to be. It all starts tonight. I'm Harper LeBel. Welcome to the 100 Yards of Football Special Draft Edition show. Along with me is our co-host, our founder, Vincent Turner. Logan Landers is producing for the first half of the show. Brian LeBel will produce for the second half. And let's get right to it, guys. Tennessee is on the clock. Vincent, it's been a long while. We've talked about guys for months, and now it's time here where the NFL draft is finally kicking in. Tennessee is on the clock.
Very exciting time. I want to say thank you to all the people that supported 100 Yards of Football. That's the great Marvin Gaye. Let's get it on. The Titans, what more can you say? I was a very big fan of Will Levis last year, and unfortunately, he didn't get the job done. So Brian Callahan has got to have him a guy that he's drafted, and I see Cam Ward going number 1 overall from the U, baby. Back to you, Hawk.
Yeah, it looks like Tennessee. Brian, you've got some stats, but Tennessee was 3-14 last year. They got $42.3 million under their cap. They picked up 2 quarterbacks, Van Johnson as a wide receiver, a tackle, 3 guards, 2 edge rushers, a defensive lineman, a couple of linebackers, a snapper, a punter, and a kicker. So they've made some moves in the offseason. They still have some money. Logan, your first thoughts here about Tennessee?
Yeah, we know Tennessee, they've got some holes they need to fill. Quarterback room, as Vincent mentioned, just to piggyback off of that, Will Levis had some promise early on in his career, but we saw last year just struggled at times. And I'm in agreement with Mr. Turner. I think that, the first overall pick will go Cam Ward out there in Miami, even though I do love that guy, Travis Hunter out of Colorado, hell of a ball player, but I think they got to address the quarterback room.
Well, obviously, Brian, we're going to talk first about Tennessee, but you've got some news already. The draft has just started. Tell us a little bit where you're going to be our update man all throughout the evening.
So rumor mill is the Browns have traded their pick. Obviously, they're not going to announce anything because they're doing their intros right now. Lil Wayne's on stage, so they probably won't announce it during that. But the rumors are the Browns have moved their pick. I don't know where yet, but they're trading out of the 2 spot. So we'll see.
So
what
does
happens.
that mean Travis Hunter will go to the next bidder? Is somebody really wanting to move up for him, or do you think it's Abdul Carter?
I think the consensus, the pick that everyone was kind of in love with was Carter. I think there's a large following of GMs and scouts that think he's overall the best player in the draft. Although if the Browns are saying, hey, we need to get more capital later on, or maybe it's a position we don't need to fill, I don't know. Maybe they're trading back 1 spot. It could be a shot, could be Shedeur Sanders. I don't know as of yet. We'll find out. I mean, that's kind of the fun of it all. So we won't know. I don't even officially know who they've traded the pick yet to. They haven't even announced it yet. So we'll find out here probably about 12 minutes from now.
All right. Well, Tennessee's still on the clock. Do you have any idea right now? You're looking at the screen live. What have they got? About 8 minutes left to go on
Oh, they're still booing Goodell, so I don't know. It's once they're done booing him, then
let's stop and let them do that. All right,
Yeah.
let's let that take place.
Yeah.
I'll take my hat off and whatever, and we'll do all that. Abdul Carter obviously is the number 1 player in the draft, at least in terms of the rankings. You've got Travis Hunter being 2nd. Cam Ward is down about 5th or 6th. So there is some speculation about why would I have picked the 6th best guy with the number 1 pick. Vincent, first thoughts. You're obviously from the 901 in Western Tennessee, but the Titans are your home team. Your first thoughts about 1, the trade, and 2, second of all, is what you think going. Calvin Ridley, by the way, is the number 1 paid player on the Tennessee Titans. He's making $28 million. He's a 31-year-old wide receiver out of Alabama.
Well, I know you hear so many rumors leading up to the draft, and I know last week there was a man down there in Dallas who loved Travis Hunter. I don't have to say his name. Everybody can take a guess who I'm talking about. But I was saying, what do the Dallas Cowboys have enough to move up to take the guy number 2, Mr. Travis Hunter?
Yep.
And then I know the Las Vegas Raiders are in love with him. I know Pete Carroll loves him. So it's interesting that Cleveland traded the pick, but I can understand some teams want to get Travis Hunter, and mainly the Cowboys, because C.D. Lamb needs help on the other side of the ball since Mr. Hunter plays both sides of the ball. Remember this, I believe Mr. Hunter, 95 receptions, over 1,200 some yards, 14 touchdowns. He'll also be a very nice piece to go with Dallas. But whoever is trading with the Browns, I guarantee you they're giving up a lot.
Yeah,
Back to you, Harper.
that's what. And ideally, I'm looking at Dallas right now. They have 10 picks overall. They have the 12th pick in the first round, and they have the 12th pick in the second as well. So that would be some of the collateral that they have. Brian, before we go to Logan, you had some interesting comments regarding Tennessee in their last several draft picks over the past couple, 4 or 5 different years. Go ahead and fill us in on what that is.
Well, they really haven't drafted an impact player in the first round, really the last half a decade. I think that's kind of obvious when you watch them play right now. You know, they've been losing a lot lately, right? This is a team that was almost a Super Bowl team if you go back as far as 5-6 years ago. But I think they're looking for impact. I think that's why Cam Ward makes a lot of sense, because they're saying, listen, we tried Levis. You know, we've had some filler guys in the quarterback room. Because even Ryan Tannehill, a lot of people argue, like, I don't even know if he's a top half guy when they were winning. But I think they like him a lot. But yeah, there's been a lot of woes in the Titans war room over the last half a decade or so. It's going to be interesting to see if they're able to reverse the ship. I think Ward makes the most sense. I think he's the most obvious pick, because I think he's the best quarterback in the draft. And I don't think, if you have a need there, obviously you can never go wrong with at least trying to get your impact guy at QB.
Well, an interesting scenario, Logan, we're going to go with you next, is when you think about just 4 or 5 years ago when Travis Henry was still running for Tennessee, and everyone was saying, you know what, he probably is getting a little bit long in tooth. Well, Baltimore certainly proved him wrong there, didn't they? So I think they've been giving up on guys a lot sooner than they might ought to, but that's between their staff, their owner, and everybody else. Quarterback, wide receiver, edge, guard, safety are the major picks that everybody seems to be agreeing on. They have 8 total picks, Logan. So your thoughts now about Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, if you're Tennessee, like I said, they have 8 overall picks, so they've got a lot of house money to play with. And obviously, if you're the number 1 overall pick, you've got a lot of holes you need to fill. So spread the love, go and get as many top players as you can. Obviously, with number 1, it's a lot of responsibility. I think we're all saying here it's going to be Cam Ward, because you got to have a solid quarterback in today's league to have any form of success. We saw, like we mentioned, Calvin Ridley, still a really good ball player. They just picked up Tyler Lockett last night to bring in a veteran as well. So they've re-signed a couple of guys this offseason on the O-line. So you can tell they're slowly but surely, I think, starting to rebuild that offense. And why not get a dynamic quarterback to kick things off?
Wouldn't you think, and Logan, I'll stick with you for a second. Wouldn't you think that, with the number 1 pick, and I said this just a few moments ago, that Cam Ward is the number 6 or 7, depending on which draft board you're looking at. Why wouldn't you make a play for Aaron Rodgers and just rent him for a year or maybe 2? You've got the cap room.
No, you do have the cap room, and we know that there are some off-the-field concerns, we'll say, with Rodgers that's kind of been looming over his head the last couple of seasons. And we saw in New York that he did put up some better numbers last year. It wasn't bad numbers at all, but it's a gamble, I would say. I think that if you're Tennessee, they're trying to have a not veteran core, but maybe just go younger, right? Because you just mentioned with Derrick Henry, they said, hey, he might be old and damaged goods, and we see that that's clearly not the case. And for Rodgers, he's maybe got 1 year, possibly 2, but it's just a short-term rental at that point. I feel like if you go for an Aaron Rodgers, that's just you're not gonna. That's not a move that you get to the playoffs, really. That's just a move to pick someone up to finish out his career, per se. If you go with Cam Ward or any of the other, young quarterbacks or young players in this draft, that, you're building for success for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and not just for, short-term rental if you get Rodgers.
Well, the same question to you, Vincent, and I guess I'm going to answer it before I even ask, is that if you're Aaron Rodgers, I'm not going to a team that doesn't have a chance to make it to the playoffs. You're picking first in the draft for a reason. So I think you take him out of that. So you're going to build for the next decade. At least you're going to attempt to with Cam Ward.
I'm looking at Brian Callahan. A lot of people don't remember he was the offensive coordinator when the young man from LSU, Joe Burrow, touched down in Cincinnati. Look how Joe Burrow's career has turned out. Brian Callahan took this job last year. He said, okay, I'm looking at Will Levis. He's a second-year guy. And we saw what happened. So Brian Callahan, for job purposes, I got to have my own man at the quarterback position. And I'm looking at the AFC South. Trevor Lawrence is struggling right now in Jacksonville. C.D. Stroud took a step back. He was saying it was an offensive line. Anthony Richardson is struggling in Indianapolis. So you bring Cam Ward in. He plays well. He got some pieces. We know Kevin Ridley can ball because we know what he did here in Atlanta. They got a veteran, Van Jefferson. They just signed Tyler Lockett, who was a very good player in Seattle. They got my boy from Orange Mound, Melrose High School, Tony Pollard. Don't judge him on last year. Judge him what he did with the Cowboys. 2 back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. And I'm going to tell you this. Brian Callahan knows if you get the right person under center, Nashville's the type of city that get energized and Opry Line will be at another level like an atomic bomb. Back to you, Mr. Harper LeBel.
Yeah, when they had the miracle on in Memphis, that was so much fun, and they were fun to watch. It was a Jeff Fisher team, and they've really struggled. They go to a Super Bowl, right? Because the core group of guys. Here's some of the key, in my opinion, free agent signees. You got Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle as their quarterback. I'm sorry, neither one of those guys are going to impress me and be in the league for a long, long time. You mentioned Van Jefferson. He signed a 1-year deal with a max value of only $2.5 million. So that was on the cheap. Dan Moore, Blake Hance, Kevin Zeider, Corey Levin are all three. Those guys are linemen, right? So you wanted to enhance your line. And a bunch of the defensive guys. Lorenzo Carter, former Falcon here, signed with the Titans. Obviously looking for new work there. Brian, your perspective right now, the pick should be very close to be coming in. Is that what you're seeing right now?
I'm officially, they say the pick is in, it's Cam Ward. I think we do that a while back. But I think if you're the Titans, if you have a good draft class, like Vincent mentioned, this division is kind of a toss-up right now. I think the Texans are still the best team top to bottom, but CJ Stroud taking a step back was very apparent because this looked like a team last year that was unstoppable. And then it was kind of like, man, they're not really the toast of the town of the AFC yet. The Chiefs are still better. I think the Bills are still better. I think if the Bengals can figure out, their money situation, because I'm still wondering if they're going to trade, make a move tonight, maybe add a pick, because I don't think they can keep everybody in-house, especially after signing, you got Burrow's extension. You got all these. I mean, they've paid 2 wide receivers. But I think the Titans right now, a good draft class, you bring some vets in at the wide receiver position, which is smart. If you're going to go get a rookie quarterback, hey, let's get a couple veterans. Let's make it easier on him. Let's make the transition easier. But I know you don't want to pressure a young guy, but this division is kind of wide open. Maybe not win it first year, but I think certainly if you're impactful enough, you're better than the Colts, who I said Anthony Richardson. I don't know what's going on with him. And then you look at with the Jaguars. I mean, they were, which the Jaguars actually just traded for the second pick. So now they're on the clock too after. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I wonder what they're going to do. Maybe Abdul Carter here, Travis Hunter. I don't know, but yeah, it's interesting just talking about them. But yeah.
Okay, so the first pick is in. Is that what you're telling me?
Cam Ward is officially a Tennessee Titan. Yes, sir.
Okay, so number 1 is in. Thank you for that. And then you mentioned the trade. Cleveland traded back, 3 spots from 2 to 5?
Yes, which is interesting.
And now Jacksonville's on the clock. And I imagine that's a great move for Jacksonville, at least for right now, as we're looking at it. We don't know the particulars. They're only moving back 3 spots, so it may cost them a second or possibly a fourth, but there may be a fourth or fifth that's thrown in also. I've noticed that's kind of a trend lately, is that instead of giving you 2, I'm going to give you 3 picks, but I'm going to get 2 in return for that. That seems to be the wave of the future. But if you get any particulars about that, please don't hesitate to bring that in. So, all right, Cam Ward is officially, I'm looking at my right now, Cam Ward is now the newest Tennessee Titan. Vincent, your thoughts first.
Excitement. Like I said, a guy that's going into a town that's hungry. Nashville is a very excellent city, one of them quiet big cities. A lot of people don't know Nashville's up for a new stadium down on the waterfront. So a lot of things are really kind of laying out. Like I say, the lane is wide open. But most of all, I like what the Titans have got, the skill positions. One more time, Calvin Ridley, Van Jefferson, Tyler Lockett, Tony Pollard. Does some pretty good pieces to start. And then remember this, the Titans do have one of the top-rated defensive tackles in the game. Jeffrey Simmons, even though a lot of people don't give him credit, he's one of the top 5 D tackles. So they got talent on their team. And being in the AFC South, as I'm going to mention one more time, Jacksonville struggled last year with Trevor Lawrence. Indiana struggled with Mr. Anthony Richardson. C.J. Stroud took a step back. I don't mean to repeat myself, but if Cam Ward comes in and play halfway decent, the division, the lane is going to be wide open. Back to you, Harp.
Well, the numbers certainly speak for themselves. He was the top thrower in the college. He's playing for the University of Miami. I think last year, the 2023 season, he really set himself apart. Logan, your first thoughts about Cam, his athleticism? What is he? Officially 6'2", 219. He measures out at the number 7 overall player on many boards. But obviously, he was the guy that everybody said, if there's going to be a quarterback out there that you want, it's going to be him.
I mean, he's the definition of, hard work, right? He went from Incarnate World, which I'd never even heard of before this young man, to Washington State, to the U, of course, and now he's the number 1 overall draft pick. So, a guy who just worked his way up, and hopefully for the best of him for his NFL career. But, man, just absolutely electric. You could watch his highlight tapes all day at Miami and even at Washington State. Just an absolute gunslinger, and hopeful for the Tennessee Titan fan that they can get a franchise quarterback, because they've been searching for one for a little bit now.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And Brian, you've got some official. I'm not saying I know anything. I'm just saying I've seen it before, where instead of just trading one pick for one pick and maybe throwing in another, Brian, this one is a little more detailed than that.
Yeah, so essentially it's just 3 rounds they're swapping picks. So the Browns are trading their 2nd overall pick, obviously. They're trading their 4th and their 6th for the 5th overall pick, the 4th and 6th, but they're also getting the 36th overall pick. So they're going to get 2 picks in the first 36, and I think they move up a couple spots in the other 2. So that's if you're looking to trade back, you say, hey, our guy's still going to be there at 5. I think this is textbook. You get to move up a couple spots later on, and then you add a 2nd-round pick, which is big. So we're getting 2 of the top 40 players. And, maybe there's someone they like there in round 2 where they get to double dip. The Browns listed right now, with their quarterback room, with everything they got going on, maybe they don't like Shador here. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they got Myles Garrett. So really, Abdul Carter would just the rich get richer there. But I think it's a good move for the Browns. I think they add some much needed capital. And it's interesting. The Jaguars are trying to make a splash before the draft. That was the thing. They want to be unconventional. That was the quote. Out of Jacksonville. But yeah, right off the jump, they move up to 2. So we'll see. Interesting to see who the pick is here.
Well, it's Travis Hunter, or you're talking Abdul Carter. Is there anyone else that you think that they would want to move up for?
Maybe they didn't think Ashton Jeanty would be there at 5, but I don't know. If you trade up number 2 overall for a running back, I think they have to probably believe that he's maybe the best player in the draft. But I don't know. They've kind of their running game fell off a little bit last year. They weren't all that good. And I think if you're Trevor Lawrence, he's sitting here saying, hey, man, listen, I need to be able to run the football a little bit if we're going to, open up the passing game. Because he took a lot of flack last year, Trevor Lawrence did, because he kind of fell off. But if they can't run the football and teams are able to, play coverage and they don't have to worry about 8-man fronts, it gets a little bit more difficult. So, again, I don't know. It could be Hunter, too. Could be anybody. Abdul Carter, and I wouldn't be surprised.
All right. Well, a lot going on there. And, Vincent, I'll come back with you first. If you're going to trade up for Ashton Jeanty, if I'm Trevor Lawrence and saying I need a run game, I'm also Trevor Lawrence saying I need to not be on my back so many times and getting hurt. So why would you move up and not take Will Campbell or one of these other guys to help protect your quarterback? Would you be able, with this extra pick, to be able to add maybe the 4th or 5th best tackle and fit that spot there by making this move? But they traded away that right by picking up Jacksonville. So give us your first thoughts here about Jacksonville trading with Cleveland, the number 2 overall pick, a 4th rounder and a 6th rounder that end up going to Cleveland from Jacksonville, and Jacksonville return gets a 5th rounder. The 5th overall. I'm getting it wrong. Cleveland gets the 5th overall, the 36th overall, and then they also get a 4th and a 6th round pick. So please forgive me for my mix up there. But go ahead, Vincent.
Okay, Harp, who did Jacksonville hire as their coach? What's his name? Lim Cohen, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. What's the tree he comes out of? He comes out there with the Rams. Who's the coach for the Rams right now, fellas?
Well, he's the youngest and probably the best coach that's around, Sean McVay. Go ahead.
And he loves what? Offense.
Yes, he does.
He loves toys. And Ashton Jeanty, from a lot of people saying it's the best running back that's came in this league in a long time, I call him a poor man's Walter Payton with more athletic ability. And a guy that can really be an explosive guy in any offense when you got a quarterback with Trevor Lawrence. And let me say this. The young man out of LSU they took in the first round, Brian Thomas, surprised a lot of people. Played at a very high level last year. So you got Mr. Cohen, who's the new head coach. You got to think he's thinking offense. So I think they want Ashton Genty right here because the Las Vegas Raiders are in love with him too. Remember that. Logan,
Brian, what do you got? Hold on, Vincent. Brian, what do you got?
So close. They went Travis Hunter. They added Travis Hunter, which is interesting because now you got Hunter with, like you mentioned, Brian Thomas, who's maybe Malik Neighbors and him were probably very much so in competition as the best wide receiver. I think Neighbors gets the edge a little bit last year, but if you're Trevor Lawrence, I don't think you got a lot to complain about anymore. I think you got one of the best wide receiver rooms in football now, right? I mean, unless they play him both ways, he's going to do a little bit of the cornerback and then a little bit of the receiver. I don't know what they do with him, but it's interesting because a lot of teams were talking about playing him both ways. I don't know how you can do that at the NFL level, but you got a Heisman caliber wide receiver and a Heisman caliber DB, so they can do whatever they want now. They got plenty of toys.
All right, so the pick is confirmed. You're right?
Yes, confirmed. Yep.
It. Okay. So Jacksonville moves up, and they get from number 5. They get the best guy, number 1 overall. Is there any disagreement with that, Logan? We'll start with you. He's the number 1 guy on the board, and it's not just because he's Shohei Ohtani in a helmet. He's a dual guy, but he was listed because of it. He's 6'1", 185 pounds. I'm still saying you can feed him. It's okay. Give him a Big Mac and something else. But he's 4'4" with the 40, and he's the number 1 overall guy in the draft, and he goes number 2 overall.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big debate for weeks and months on end now. Is it Cam Ward? Is it Travis Hunter? Those were the pretty much consensus, 1 and 2 overall selections. I feel like with Jacksonville, they just signed Trevor Lawrence to that big money deal, right? So it wouldn't make sense for them to draft a quarterback. And they, like I said, they need help on both sides of the ball. You mentioned Brian Thomas had a kind of a solid start to his career down there in Jacksonville. And why not get 2 positions for 1, right? Travis said he wants to play both positions. And this is a team who last year they allowed they scored just around 18 points per ball game. And they gave up about 25-26. So they need some help on both sides of the ball there. You mentioned that they had a complete overhaul in the front office, new head coach, new GM. Usually that means they're going to want to make some big moves, as we saw, as Brian reported. They made the trade up. They said, we want to get Travis Hunter. We don't think he's going to be there at their number 5 overall pick. We have to make a splash down here in Jacksonville, and they certainly have done that. So excited to see how Travis Hunter is going to do, and I'm also, like I say, glad to see his dad's there as well. That's a nice little feel-good story there that the whole family's getting to see this young man in this nice neon pink suit. I don't know if y'all are seeing that. He's looking dressed to the nines right now up there on the stage.
Yeah, wearing black and gold with CU for the last couple of years, and then Jackson State's colors. I guess he's going to open up a little bit with this newfound money that he's going to have. But you know what? Now, because of NIL, he's already got a couple bucks in his pocket. There's no problem with that. Brian, what are your thoughts here?
So the Jaguars were adamant. They announced him as a cornerback and wide receiver. So that makes me think that they're probably going to play him as both. I mean, consensus, he was the best player in college football last year. I think he's the best player in the draft. I know quarterbacks kind of take precedent. That's kind of why Cam Ward was first. Not really shocked here. Now the Giants kind of an interesting, they got a pretty good defensive line room. So if you're the Giants right now, 3 is kind of an interesting spot. I don't really know if they have anybody in particular, but I think Abdul Carter is the best player left on the board. But Travis Hunter, I think best player in the draft. Obviously, everyone had him rated as their number 1, and it's not really a surprise that he was the first player off the board, not a quarterback.
Yeah, Vincent, your thought here, now that it's been confirmed, Travis Hunter is, I think they said cornerback first, and if I'm going to hold that literally, I want him playing every down on defense and maybe coming in offensively and maybe 2 or 3 plays a series on a 10-play drive. I'm okay with him only playing 4, but I want him to be fresh enough, and he certainly has the ability. It's just a size factor. That's the biggest thing for me.
Duval County, like I said, you got Trevor Lawrence. You got him on a long-term deal. He got it beat up last year. The Jaguars took a step back. Their coach got fired. They bring an offensive-minded coach who likes toys. Travis Hunter fits a need, as y'all gentlemen said, on both sides of the ball. But I'm looking for him to play more on the offense side of the ball team with Brian Thomas. That tells me they're going to keep Travis Etienne. So basically if Mr. Anthony Young can stay healthy, then Jacksonville's got a team that can challenge in the AFC South. But the one point I want to bring up is this. Travis Hunter's a tremendous athlete. No question about it, he's the best player in the draft. But for me, for him to play both ways, he's going to have to put on some weight. And will that affect him? Putting on maybe 15 or 20 more pounds, because there's no way that I'm going to believe he's going to play at 185. Back to you, Hart.
Yeah, well, I'm going to point east, and that's where he's from. He's a Lawrenceville, Swanee, Georgia kid. Congratulations, first and foremost, Travis. You had a fantastic high school and now collegiate career, and we wish you the best in terms of your pro career as well. You were the second pick overall. You're a Heisman Trophy winner. What more can you say? But congratulations to him. And Brian, any final thoughts on Travis before we move on to the New York Giants, who are on the clock now?
I think he's the only guy in the draft where if he doesn't pan out as a wide receiver or as a DB, you can put him full-time somewhere else. So really, you're rolling the dice twice here. I think it's kind of a no-brainer because I think he has the ability to be a Pro Bowl caliber player at both positions. I think right now DB is probably his strongest position, and I think it's a little bit more it's harder to find a quality DB and a number one lockdown guy than it is a wide receiver. I think you have far fewer lockdown. That's why Jalen Ramsey's still so coveted, even all these years later, just because you have so many fewer guys that can play DB versus wide receiver. It's probably a little bit higher as far as a skill gap there. But I mean, he can play. He can play both sides of the ball, and he produced and he proved it. And I think it's a great pick at 2.
Well, Will Johnson, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just going to throw this in there. Will Johnson is kind of a tweener with me. He's listed as a cornerback. He had a great career at Michigan. But in my opinion, because he's 6'2", and he's, 210, and he runs a 4.39, he could play safety if it doesn't work out at corner, or he might be an outside guy that comes in, steps into the box, and be a linebacker on third down and short or something like that. He's still only on one side of the ball, but he's a tweener to me that he can do multiple positions and possibly do it at a Pro Bowl level, at least, the way that he played at Michigan and carrying that over. Am I wet and not know what I'm talking about in regards to that? Because Travis, to me, is a corner only and a wide receiver. He might even be a slot receiver, not the bigger guy that you want on the outside. Brian, your thoughts?
I think he can do a little bit of everything. I think the NFL has kind of gone away. Usually you want your bigger guys, your 6'2", 6'3" wide receivers outside. But I mean, we've seen guys like Odell Beckham Jr. kind of change the landscape. You get a guy who's only 5'10", 5'11", who can line up outside, line up inside, and you move him in motion and you move him all around the formation. You put him in the backfield. You get some of these guys that are going, jet sweeps or whatever, just getting them the ball. I think Travis can do all of that. I think the only issue he didn't do more on offense and in college is simply because, hey, you're our best player on the other side of the ball too, so we kind of need you there. So you don't want to – I don't want him out here going 120 snaps every single game, run him to the ground. We need him. But again, I don't know what's going to be asked of him. Maybe Trevor's like, hey, listen, I've worked out with him a little bit more. Let's give him some more plays off on the defensive side and get him over here. But we'll see what happens. He's a jack of all trades. He could do it on both sides. And I think he's wherever they mix him in offense, I think he's going to do just fine. Well,
I promise you this. If Chad Ochocinco, when he was playing with Cincinnati, was asked to block Ray Lewis on a running play, and after Chad woke up and realized that Ray had knocked him out and on the ground, don't ask Travis Hunter to do that with Ray Lewis. Now, they're both retired, so I'm okay with that. But let's move forward. Vincent, New York Giants are on the clock. Let's just go. They were 3-14 last year. Their biggest needs right now are quarterback, wide receiver, defensive tackle, guard, and linebacker. They have 8 picks in this draft. They're struggling money-wise. They've got $1.83 million left right now. They're 32 out of 32 teams. Brian Burns is their highest-paid player, that 27-year-old outside linebacker who's making $29.7 million. Tell me what you think the New York Giants can do here to help themselves out.
Well, I think we got some on our chat line. I think Abdul Carter has already went to the Giants, right? Has he been selected?
Yep, he's officially a Giant. So their front four is very scary right now. They got a very good defensive line room.
I like what the Giants are doing. I think the question is the quarterback position and can they get some offense? But when you're looking at that defense, as Mr. Brian LeBel just said, they picked up Javon Holland from Miami that can play. Tyler Nubin, who started there last year out of Minnesota, can play. Dexter Lawrence, maybe the best defensive tackle last year, all-pro first team. Then you got Brian Burns, who bringing speed off the edge. And then I forgot they still got the young man out of California, L.A., Kayvon Thibodeau. Now you put Abdullah Carter with that. And I'm going to say this, as I said earlier the week on several videos on 100 yards of football, and people started saying, well, Vincent, you might be a little crazy. This gentleman right here has got the quickest first step of any guy coming in the league rushing since I seen Derek Thomas coming out of Alabama when he went to Kansas City. And I'm going to say it right now live and get it back to Mr. Harper LeBel. To me, he's a better prospect than Michael Parsons and LeVar Arrington that came out of Penn State. Look at the game film. The gentleman had, I think, 23 tackles for losses this year. I don't have to say no more. Look at his game film this year. Back to you, Mr. LeBel.
Well, I'm writing it down. It's in the books. Abdul Carter.
Yes, you can put a stamp on that.
Yeah, they bring in Russell Wilson, 4 wide receivers, a tight end, a couple of new tackles, 2 new guards, an edge rusher, 2 defensive tackles, linebackers. They've made some moves, and that's probably why they don't have any money left. Logan, your first thoughts here about Abdul Carter going to the Giants?
I like the approach they're going with here. I mean, you heard the reactions as soon as they drafted him. We all say, "Ooh!" I mean, because that defense, if as good as it looks on paper, if it can produce in the league next year, I get the offense might need a little bit of might need a little bit more work, but that's what you got. All the other picks in the other round for. But that front 4 up there, those big guys up on the D line. I mean, New York, they're slowly but surely, I think, starting to get back to a better program, better team after the debacle they've had over the last couple of years. So I love this move here. And like Vincent said, Abdul Carter is just lightning quick, great feet, awesome power for a guy his size too. So I like the pick here, and I think that defense it's going to be scary to see if you're an opposing offense. No doubt about that.
Yeah, Brian, your thoughts here about Abdul? I know there's Giants defense. They're going to probably win some games 3-0 or 6-3, right? Because they don't score a whole heck of a lot.
I mean, the Giants have a history of this. If you go back to the early 2000s and the mid 2000s when they were beating Tom Brady in Super Bowls, they had Justin Tuck, O.C. Umenyiora, Michael Strahan. They prioritized the edge position, and it worked. They were very, very good. And now you have Kayvon Thibodeau a couple years ago. You have Abdul Carter now. Their defensive tackle room is tremendous.
Please forgive me for interrupting. I call those guys the small-waisted wonders because every one of them was a little tiny. They didn't have a big, heavy guy. They were all 6'5", and they all had big arms, wide shoulders, but 32-inch chest or waist, and they were 285 pounds, but they were more athletic. And one of them was going to get to you if you're the quarterback. Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but yeah. When you
I think Justin Tuck carried most of his weight in his face mask too, if you remember that. So I think he had to be thin up there. But I mean, it was a formula for success. I think defensive end and having a disrupted defensive line. I know when Logan and I do our draft, when we did our prospect shows, I talk all the time. I say, hey, defensive ends have a chance to be game wreckers. You can disrupt. You can put another team behind the 8 ball and they say, listen, we wanted to run the ball, we want to do this. But if they got a guy who's just absolutely unblockable up front, it really takes away what you're trying to do. And now you got to keep the running back in. You got to keep the tight end in to chip. And it's just, they may not have a quarterback, but they got 6 guys that can rush after the opposing quarterback. So maybe by the end of it, if he gets hit enough, both teams will be playing without a quarterback by the end of the game. But I love what they're doing here. I think they got a bunch of menaces on their defensive front. And I think if they just, again, you go and you get your quarterback room figured out, you got Malik Neighbors. I mean, I like what they're doing up in New York.
Well, you didn't have a whole heck of a lot of time to talk about it before the Patriots have made their pick. Is this the final? It also is. Are we looking at an official number 4 has been selected, and it's Will Campbell going to New England? Can we confirm that?
The same sources that I've been right on the first 3 are saying that. They haven't announced it yet. We got to get a commercial break in edgewise.
Yeah,
but
okay.
I assume as soon as they come back, Will Campbell is the pick at number 4.
Well, I'm not sure if the ghost of Bill Belichick look, I'm not going to mess around with any of this stuff. I don't care. I'm just going to get this kid, and we want him, and we're not going to wait the full 10 minutes. They didn't need for the phones to ring. They were going to make that pick, and that was another one of those ones that probably a little bit obvious. But Vincent, first, foremost, any final thoughts about New York before we move on to New England?
Defense is going to probably be one of the best in the division. Watch out, Eagles. The Giants' defense is coming. A lot of super talent.
Yep. Logan, any more thoughts regarding the Giants?
I think the offense is going to be, one of the tops in the league potentially if all things work out well. If Kayvon Thibodeau can continue to grow, and we'll see how how all the draft picks and all the guys they've added, if they can get better and better. Offensively, I think, like I said, there might be a lot of 3-0, 6-0 ball games, but I think they can still work on that throughout the rest of the draft. But I think that they definitely look a lot better right now than they did about 10 minutes ago.
All right, Brian, we're going to confirm this in just a few moments. Before we do, the New England Patriots were 4-13 last year. They are number one in the league right now in cap space. They have $68.47 million. They also pick in the second round. They've got the number 6 overall in the second round. They've got 9 picks total. Their high need is tackle, wide receiver, running back, safety, and edge. And it looks like they took care of their tackle need with the best one, the number 1 rated tackle in Will Campbell from LSU. Brian, first of all, are we any further along are we back from the commercial break, and has that decision been finalized?
They just did their little, hey, we're going to go back over the first 3 picks, but we have returned. I'm sure it'll be just a second. They got to do the whole production, give everybody their flowers. So
Okay.
I think not quite confirmed yet, but it's Will Campbell.
All right. Before we go, Vincent, let me just say Joshua Dobbs at quarterback signed a 2-year, $8 million deal. Stephon Diggs, Mac Hollins, who was with the Eagles last year, Austin Hooper, Wes Schweitzer, Harold Landry, Milton Williams, Robert Spillane, Carlton Davis, Marcus Epps, Jalen Hawkins are among the new New England Patriots, ones that have just recently signed or been re-signed. The Patriots looking to make a splash with Mike Vrabel, and certainly getting the best tackle isn't kind of the sizzle that you would want, but if you're going to build a team, you got to do it with your offensive defensive line. They've certainly shored that up. Your thoughts, Vincent?
They signed Morgan Moses as a free agent at tackle. I believe he's 34 years old, correct? And then they cut
three-year, $24 million deal.
Okay.
That can go up to 28. Yes.
And then they cut David Andrews, who's been a mainstay out of the University of Georgia, who I thought at one time was their best offensive lineman. So basically, I'm looking at it like this. Mike Vrabel, we know what he's about. Ohio State, former Patriot player. He going to like the line of scrimmage. Morgan Moses is not going to get the job done at 34 years old. Drake May played pretty well at the end of the year. That's why Joe Milton had to go. So basically, Drake May needs help, and they bring in a young man who started as a true freshman. I seen him start as a freshman against Florida State, and I say, you know what? In 3 years, he's going to be in the National Football League as a first-round pick, and he did not disappoint me. Will Campbell. A lot of people saying his arms are short. I don't understand it, but if you go back and look at his play for the last 3 years, I still consider the Southeastern Conference the best, toughest conference in all of America. And he held his own as a true freshman, held his own as a sophomore, held his own as a junior, played pretty well against that Georgia D-line for 3 years. One of them Georgia players is Jalen Carter, that's right now that's doing good with the Eagles. Outstanding pick. The Patriots are back. And plus, you said they signed Mr. Stephon Diggs.
Brian, hold on a second, Vincent. Brian, you got an update for us?
So I'm being told Mason Graham is the pick for the Browns at number 5. They pair him with Myles Garrett. I think that's a great pick. I think what happened was Mason Graham was their guy all along because they were like, hey, we're not going to get Cam Ward, obviously. Travis Hunter would be nice, but maybe not for us. And I think Mason Graham was kind of their guy the whole time. And I think they were going to move back, add some players, and then add some prospects, some draft picks later on, and then still get their guy at 5. So I think if that was the case for the Browns, I think the Browns look pretty good here, coming out with Mason Graham, at number 5.
All right. So if this is already official, then Will Campbell, who we're looking at on our screen right now, was very quickly picked. And then right on top of that, it looks like Cleveland at 3-14. And this is just going from offense to defense. Top needs quarterback, tackle, wide receiver, defensive tackle, and linebacker. They've got 10 picks, does Cleveland. And going back the way that they have, now they've got an 11th pick that they got. I'm sure that they're going to use some of these assets to maybe move up in the second round or maybe move back up into the first if they have someone else that's on that list of high needs. Shador obviously being one of those, or maybe Jackson Dart. I don't want to miss out on your New England information. Anything important from you, Logan, on that before we move on to Cleveland?
No, I mean, you guys have already mentioned it, that New England has been probably the busiest team in the offseason, right? With the new head coach, all the brand new additions they have. I like the Stephon Diggs deal. And they still have all of that cap space left as well. If they want to continue to make moves, that they can easily do so. Like I say, you got to protect your quarterback. You got to keep him upright. So I think it's the right pick. Will Campbell's been tied to the Patriots for the longest time now. So not a surprising shock here, but glad to see that, the Patriots, like I said, the Patriots they had a little bit of a decline, right? But man, it feels like they've already kind of punched their way back up in the South, and it's going to be a fun time if you're a Patriots fan this year.
Yeah, they've had a rough go, haven't they, for the last 25 years? It's been a little tough on Patriots. All right.
How about
So
three years?
If you're looking at the value aspect of this, and why on earth would Cleveland want to make the trade? Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham are their top four. And Mason was still available because Cam Ward and then you had Will Campbell all available. So for them to move back and still get the fourth best player with the number 5 pick, there's a value and a business reason for wanting to do that and paying less in terms of your cap space and the amount that you would have for that. So it seems like a move. If that's the guy that they want, they played this masterfully. Anyone disagreeing with me on that? Vincent, we'll start with you.
No, I got one question. Do anybody know the status of the gentleman they took last year at Ohio State, Michael Hall, who everybody was saying was maybe the best D tackle in the game? He had that domestic problem, and he got suspended. I don't know if he's going to be coming back, but you're right, Harper. I mean, it's an excellent move. And then I'm looking at this. Cleveland, they already made a commitment when they signed Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. One of those two gentlemen are going to be their starting quarterback. So what do? You're going to get strong on which side of the ball is stronger. It's your defense. Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, Pro Bowl corner. Martin Everson, another great cover corner. Greg Newsome, another great cover corner. And then you got Mason Graham. All I have to say is go back to the Rose Bowl last year, Michigan National Championship game, and look how he played against the Alabama defensive line. We call it in the neighborhood, I took your lunch and your lunch money. Back to you, Harper.
All right. Brian, you got another update. This is spinning. I mean, we're going quick here, right? You got another update.
Not very typical of the draft, right? Mason Graham is up here shaking. He's taking his walk to the podium, but the sources are saying Ashton Genty to the Raiders at 6, which is not particularly surprising. I think the Raiders liked him a lot. I think they were very adamant about that, and in their eyes, he might be the best offensive player in the draft. So I'm not shocked they took him here at 6.
Well, he's the number 2 overall. Let's go first and foremost. Logan, thoughts on Cleveland? We still have them unofficially on the clock, but it looks like that's going to be a pick that, in my opinion, really makes them stout up front in ways that they haven't been in a while.
Yeah, and if you're Mason Graham, I would hide all the Michigan gear heading over to Paul Brown. You don't want to be wearing that out, so you might want to put that in the closet for a couple of years. But I think that overall, like I said, with Cleveland, they've got some holes they got to fill right. But like we saw earlier in the draft, if you build that good core on defense, I think you can build around your offense. And Mason Graham is just an absolute unit, right? He is a great player. And I think that Cleveland got a tremendous defensive tackle, someone who is hopefully that could be there for many years and that can stuff the run, get to the quarterback if need be. And we know that Cleveland has always had, some good star players on the defense side of the ball, Steve Myles Garrett. And, man, these two together, that's going to be a dangerous combo.
Boy, if Joe Flacco has any problems at all, we're looking at 6-3, the final score 6-3, just like we talked about a little bit earlier with the Giants. Brian, your thoughts here about Cleveland before we move on to the Raiders?
I think Mason Graham is tremendous. I mean, you're going to have to, if he turns out and he plays as well as he did at Michigan, who do you double team, right? Because I have to commit 2 bodies to Myles Garrett every play. You have to. So if you put Mason Graham in the middle, it's going to be tough to do anything because they're both really good against the run as well. We don't talk about that a lot, but they're both very good run stoppers with how good they are. They're just disruptive forces up front. And a lot like the Giants, their defensive line is looking very, very scary. It's going to be tough to move guys out of the way. It's going to be very tough to do anything. They got a couple of just disruptors there that I love the pick. I think it's great. I think maybe they're sitting here thinking, maybe the quarterback position for them is still a giant question mark, but they get their bridge guy who can come in and say, hey, right the ship. Let's still maybe compete for a playoff spot, but they're getting everything else in order. And I like the pick. I think they did really well at 5.
Yeah, Cleveland has 19 million, just slightly over. They got $54,000 above Knight. They're 20th right now. Their highest paid player is Deshaun Watson at $35.9 million, and they obviously have to figure out what to do with that particular situation. But the Cleveland Browns are no longer on the clock. Mason Graham has now officially been drafted at number 5 overall. 6 is Las Vegas. The Raiders were 4-13 last year, everybody. They're picking 6th in the first round. They got a second round pick at number 5. They got 9 total picks. Their basic need is wide receiver, running back, cornerback, safety, and guard. Running back, it looks like they've already made that decision. They are second now in the league with $43.17 million in cap space. Their highest paid player is the newest of the Las Vegas Raiders, the Geno Smith transaction. Geno's a 35-year-old quarterback who's going to be paid $40 million. Vincent, let's go over the Raiders, you and me, and talk a little bit about we know that their need, and it looks right now, Brian, when you step in any moment, if you can confirm this, but it looks like they're going to go with the number 2 overall selection. The number 2 guy on the board is Ashton Jeanty, and you're getting him at number 6. It looks like it's a steal for the Raiders.
What more can you say? Al Davis pick. He looks like a Raider. I consider him maybe the best back that's came in this league in a long time. I'm going to say it one more time. A Walter Payton poor man special with more athletic ability. A lot of people question the competition he played against. All I got to do is go back to the second game of the year against the University of Oregon. 192, 7.7 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns. Did I answer your question? Because Oregon was the number 1 team in the college football playoff.
Hold on, stop me. Let me stop you there. Hold on. And if you were going to say, yep, he averaged 7 yards, but what did he do against Penn State?
He still went over 100 yards. Now he still went up, but if you go back to that game, he broke a lot of tackles in that game too. Showed you a little bit that he got some power. So Hop, don't put that on him. This guy can play now. Remember, he put 100 on Penn State. He had over 30-some rushes. But I'm going to say this. With the Raiders, he's going to be teaming up with Mr. Chip Kelly. We all know that Chip knows offense. And then he's going to be teaming up. Hop, you cannot argue with me on this. The best tight end talent that's came in the league. I call him John Mackey, too. University of Georgia, Brock Bowers. Back to you, Hop.
Yeah, if they get a quarterback there, he's going to be dump-off city because if Brock's being double covered or something like that, you give it to Ashton, you're going to pick up 7 or 8 yards at least, right? If he can catch the ball. Logan, your thoughts about Ashton Jeanty?
I mean, he's just God love watching him play. He is just a nasty runner, right? Runs with speed, runs with power. And the Raiders, they made the big move this offseason, got Pete Carroll. They found him. They said, hey, Pete, you want to come back and coach? He said, sure. So they're making big moves there. You got Geno Smith reuniting them. They already signed him back for a couple of years. So, and they had the worst rushing offense in the league last year. They're 32nd overall, had I think 82 or 86 yards a game, which isn't going to cut it. That's not going to be the case this year, I bet. So, I like the pick here. Definite need, and they filled that hole tremendously. And like Vincent said, you got Brock Bowers, who just took the league by storm last year. See if they can fill out the rest of their roster. But so far, their offense is getting a little bit better day by day. So love the pick here.
All right. So before we go to Brian, Logan, you're wearing a hat right now.
I am, yes.
Are you a smiling pirate right now, or are you an angry pirate?
I'm a smiling pirate right now, Harper. I like the
All
pick.
right.
Love the pick here. Last couple of drafts been a little iffy, but this one I feel confident about, and I love this one. We know the Raiders, like other teams, they sometimes might reach on some picks, but this one, like I said, they had, as you mentioned, the number 2 overall talent fall to them in a sense to number 6. So they got a hell of a running back, and I'm excited to see how he's going to transfer from Boise State out to the bright lights of Las Vegas.
Brian, do I want to talk about the Raiders with you, or do you want to break news about the Jets?
We can go Raiders a little bit first. We could talk. We can brag on Jeanty a little bit. I think his letter to the GMs was interesting beforehand. It was, hey, it's tackle football. That's the name of the game, and no one can tackle me. So think about that when you're drafting me. So I think the Raiders that's all we got to hear. Thank you very much. We're happy to have you in Las Vegas.
All right, hold on. I'm going to stop you there. He say that after he played against Colorado State and Fresno State and who else is in the Mountain West Conference? Come on now. I'm interested in why I'm being the guy that says, wait a second, let's weigh this a little bit. Okay, go ahead.
I think with the letter was attached the game film for the Oregon game. So I think she's like, hey, listen, I know, but take a look at this one. If you want to watch me go for 200 against Utah State, feel free to do that also. But listen, he's the running back position. There's been a wave of change as far as the last couple of years. Because remember, like taking a running back earlier was a cardinal sin. Remember when the Falcons took Bijan? You look at the Giants taking Saquon Barkley. Everyone's like, what are you doing taking a top 10 running back? But you look at what Saquon did last year. You look at what Derrick Henry's still doing. We mentioned him earlier in the show. You look at Bijan Robinson. Look at what Jahmyr Gibbs is doing in Detroit. The running back position is becoming more impactful. They're making more money. And I mean, if you think about it, if Gene T was putting up the kind of production that he was doing at a different position, I think he's much higher in the draft. I think he still went a little bit low because he's a running back. But I think if you're the Raiders, you're stoked because this is a game changer on offense. He's a guy that the offensive line may not be great right now, but he's like, that's okay. I can make one or two guys miss and then break it deep. And I think he takes a lot of pressure off of, like, Vincent was mentioning Brock Bowers. Maybe, I don't know if Geno Smith is the answer, but they got something brewing that it can't be any worse than last year.
Well, I get to the Raiders and look up what they did. Geno Smith, Raheem Mostert, Alex Kappa is a lineman. They re-signed Max Crosby. I think that was a huge investment into him. Malcolm Kuntz, Adam Butler, Devin White, Eric Stokes, Jeremy Chin. They brought him. Isaiah Pola-Mao. There are a couple of guys that they bring in. They got to be able to stop some people too. But offensively, I think they are. I like Geno Smith a lot more than maybe some guys that are thinking he's getting a little too long in tooth. All right, Raiders. Let's go to the Jets real quick, Brian. Any confirmation on this yet, or are we just waiting right now? The number 7 pick in the draft goes to the New York Jets. Your thoughts here?
Sources say Armin Membu to Jets at 7, and the same sources are saying he's listed as right tackle. He played right tackle in college, but they feel confident he can play either tackle position if they need to put him there. So a lot of the scouts thought his physicality, because he hasn't played a ton of football, and he showed a lot of promise at Missouri and a lot of talent, a lot of athleticism. So the Jets are, listen, offensive line, you could ask Aaron Rodgers how good the offensive line was in New York last year. Ask Breece Hall, and they'll tell you. But I think they're shoring up a need that they needed to address, and they got a lot stronger in their front 5 on offense. Well,
Justin Fields is the one who's going to need to ask how good is the offensive line right now. Now, Chukwuma Okafor, they signed with him. Josh Myers is a center that they picked up, but one of their needs is tackle, and they'd be getting the second best tackle, at least from a ranking perspective. The New York Jets were 5-12 last year. They have 8 picks overall. They're going to pick 10th in the second round, but right now they're at number 7. And if this is in, Quinnen Williams, 28-year-old, is their highest paid player on the team at $21 million a year. And then their cap space is 14th in the league right now at $28.031 million above the cap. Vincent, your thought about the Jets?
Love the pick. You're bringing in a new quarterback in Justin Fields. As Brian just said, Aaron Rodgers struggled with that offensive line last year. Think about who their new head coach is, Aaron Glenn. Think about, even though he was on the defensive side for Detroit, but me and you have talked about this a lot, Hop. Why was Detroit so good last year with Jared Goff over the last 2 years? Their offensive line.
First rounder, third rounder, first rounder. That sure helps when you got your top 5 guys, right?
Mike has dropped. The Jets have made an excellent pick. And plus the young man, Mr. Madu, played in the best conference all in the country, the SEC, and he's only 21 years old. Very versatile. Has played 3 positions in that Missouri offensive line. Love the pick.
He's number 8 overall. Armand is. Logan, give us your thoughts here about the Jets, and if we can confirm that. I'm picking 7th. I got the 8th best guy. The one in front of everybody is the wide receiver McMillan out of Arizona. So your thoughts here about New York's selection?
I like the pick. I know some of the Jets fans are going to wish that they would have taken Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona, because just pairing with Garrett Wilson would have been, just a pretty lethal, wide receiver core there. But you got to build in the trenches, right? You have to have a good offensive line, especially with, like Brian said, like Vincent said, look what happened to Aaron Rodgers last couple of years. It just didn't work out great. So if you don't have an O-line, your quarterback isn't going to have a good time. And they just signed Justin Fields, who they're hoping can, kind of break out now finally and lead the franchise. So I like the pick here. And Brian, we did a video on Armand, and we said that this dude's already NFL built. He's 6'6", 320. He's got great hands. He's got good feet. Like I said, he's young. He's only 21, so he's got some time for growth. And I like, like we mentioned with Aaron Glenn being the new head coach. He's a disciplined guy. He came from Detroit, and as Vincent had mentioned, when they drafted Penei Sewell with Dan Campbell with one of his first picks as the head coach, I can see that they're trying to mirror that over there in New York. And I like the pick overall because you got to protect the quarterback and let the rest of the skill positions fall.
Jets have had a great defensive line for years. There was a couple of years ago where all 4 of their starters were number 1 picks. Now it looks like they're going to start it on the other side of the ball. You mentioned the video that you did with Brian, Logan, and Brian smiling from ear to ear. You're both nodding as if, yeah, we got an agreement over this. Your thoughts, Brian?
He's very raw. But, I mean, it's his physical traits. Like, you can't teach that, If you can get the right coach in there, and we said that a lot of it is going to depend on, can he get in the right situation, the right coaches, have some consistency, learn how to play the position the right way. I think if you're the Jets, it's a reset, right? We're going to bring in Justin Fields, who at this stage in his career, he's produced in some maybe questionable situations. You look at what happened in Chicago, maybe didn't have the best offensive line around him again. Pittsburgh last year was kind of a mess, but you have the opportunity to come in and reset. We're going to go with the Detroit Lions. Like you said, that's the formula. Let's build the front, and then let's focus on the back. We can sign guys as well. And I love what they did. I love the pick. I think the kid can play. And I think, like Vincent said, he's 21 years old. He's got a ton of upside. You give him a couple years to figure it out, he's going to be really good.
Well, Arna Bembo is the newest New York Jet. 6'6". I've seen 6'3" too. Which one is it? You guys have an agreement on his overall size? Is 6'3" incorrect?
I think he's still listed. Let me see.
I was told we just 6'6" just a moment ago, and that's Man Mountain stuff, right? 6'3" is a little more average. He wouldn't be
got his
the
listing at 6'3". I see.
Okay,
6'3".
yeah, so it's 6'3".
Okay, and I'm
must
fine
have some stilts in those cleats, maybe.
Well, and also if he's wearing a hat and Raiders hat, he's wearing a Raiders hat, that's going to be a lot different. But his athleticism, everything about his tape, he's a manster, right? A guy that just did a great first reaction step and then great hands. He was listed number 2 for a reason in terms of being a tackle, his athleticism, all that kind of stuff. So congratulations there to the New York Jets. Let's move on to Carolina. We'll talk about them. The Carolina Panthers, also with the Jets, they'll be sharing a 5-12 record from last year. Carolina has 9 picks in the draft this year. Their next pick will be number 25 in the second round. That's very interesting how they slide back because of some previous trades and whatnot in terms of Bryce Young from a couple years ago. They have $17.164 million above the cap right now. They're listed 25th. So they've spent some money. Their top need right now is edge, safety, cornerback, wide receiver, and tackle in no specific order. They've picked up a quarterback, running back, tight ends, wide receivers, offensive linemen. They've got a lot of needs there. There's a lot of holes to fill. And by the way, before I move on, Taylor Morton is a 31-year-old offensive tackle who's making $31.3 million. He's the highest paid Carolina Panther. Your thoughts here, Vincent, about where we're going to go with the Panthers and their pick here at this slot?
Well, Mr. LeBel, I think the pick is already in. If we go over to Brian real quick, he can tell you who they just selected.
Here you go, Brian.
Teteroa McMillan is the pick at 8. They go receiver. They like, hey, listen, maybe Adam Thielen isn't the long-term answer for us there, although he was productive, but I really like what they did. Maybe a little bit of regret moving on from DJ Moore a couple years ago. I know you mentioned that trade. They're still feeling the after effects of that trade, but I like the pick. I think my comp for him was Mike Evans. I think the way he's built, I think he's a little leaner, but I think they got a really good receiver, probably the best receiver, full-time receiver. I'll say full-time receiver in the draft with McMillan at 8.
Everything I know about him, McMillan, that is 6'5". If it's in his range, he's going to come down with it. He's a fighter for the ball. He's fast at that size. He is a Drake London type guy from the West. And Logan, give me your first thoughts here about this pick here coming in at number 8.
Yeah, I mean, I like Tedero McMillan, and I think he's a good fit for the Carolina Panthers, a team who struggled early on, as we saw, but after the brief benching of Bryce Young, he came back a completely new ball player, and they look pretty solid the second half of the season. There were games where they easily could have won, but I think just inexperienced, younger players, so on and so forth, they weren't able to win those games. And now as they add on to that offense, and as you mentioned, get the top receiver in the draft, that to go along with a young quarterback going into, I believe, his third year, Bryce Young. You have Brian Burns as well. You have a bunch of other solid players. Chuba Hubbard there is your running back. I like this pick here. Carolina gets younger and younger. Of course, we know they drafted Xavier Legette last year out of South Carolina, athletic big guy who struggled with some drops last year. So hopefully he can get that on track this year and he can look better. But I like this pick. Like I said, he goes to the high point. McMillan is a tremendous player. He did great with the Wildcats. And the Panthers, I think their offense, they got a super young team. I mean, they already had maybe the youngest team in the league, and that just keeps getting younger and younger with McMillan. But, yeah, this is a guy who could, I think, definitely, if they don't think Legette is that number one option, he could definitely take over and fill that number one spot role there.
Yeah, real interesting. And I'm confirming everything that Logan and Brian said. Finish your thoughts here. I know, Vincent, we were discussing this when the pick came in, but finish what your thoughts would be regarding Carolina.
Remember, everybody wanted to throw Bryce Young under the bus and said that when he got benched, he might not last in the league for a year, but he came back and played very well at the end of the year. And he let that smoke up in the Mercedes-Benz done what? He put 44 points on the Falcons last game of the year, right? Then Xavier Legette, really, I thought they didn't really use him a lot, but we know what he can do. I can go back and look at his senior game film in South Carolina. Now you bring T. McMillan in. All I worried about was his speed. Pro day, 4.48. That was enough for me. Then I'm going to drop the mic on this. 37 career games, 213 receptions, over 3,500 yards, average 16 yards a catch. You put him with another guy out there from the West Coast and Bryce Young, and then with that man with the accent out of South Carolina, Xavier Legette, all I can say is, hold up, Atlanta Falcons. You better back up a little bit. Back to you, Harp.
Yeah, they embarrassed the Falcons there late in the year, and I'm noticing that Bryce Young is rolling out to his left, throwing deep. He was going out to his right a little bit. So the pressure which was coming in wasn't enough to affect the play. And if you gave him time, he's going to get the ball. And Logan, the Chuba Hubbard analogy, I'm getting results out of him that I never expected. So I appreciate all that he's done. And now you add a deep threat as well as a guy that can go over the middle in the same player. I'm pretty happy with that. Brian, any updates for us?
Yeah, actually, as you said that, the Saints are taking, let me see, I got Kelvin Banks Jr. at number 9 from the Saints. That's what I'm seeing. Hasn't been full. It's confirming tackle / guard. That's what they got enlisted at. So they play either or. I mean, the Saints need a lot of help kind of everywhere right now. If he played for free, that helped him out a lot too, but I don't see that happening. But yeah, Kelvin Benjamin, University of Texas at number 9 with the Saints, which is interesting because there were some rumors that this could be the Shedeur Sanders slot, but they decided to go offensive line.
Kelvin Banks or Benjamin?
Kelvin Banks Jr., number
Banks.
9.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
He's offensive tackle, 6'4", 320 pounds, huge dude. And everyone, including me, was thinking they're going to go brand new coach. They're going to go with a quarterback because they have problems there. So talk to me about that, Vincent. Tell me what you think.
I'm shocked because the rumors I was hearing just on Monday that Kellen Moore was in love with Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss.
Yeah.
That's who he was going to take.
And I've heard he's had conversations with Shedeur as well.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. But my question to you, gentlemen, is now what's the situation with Derek Carr? Because he's screaming that he's going to be out for 2026 with the shoulder injury. So now are we saying Spencer Rattler is the man now to carry the boat for Kellen Moore? Because I like the pick, but most of all, I'm looking at the Saints before this draft. Kellen Moore was really high on the quarterback, either Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart. But you take the offensive tackle, Kevin Banks, got him started as a true freshman over there at Texas and played a lot of football, very solid pick. But my question back to you, Harp, is Now, are we sold on they going to go with Spencer Rattler now as the quarterback?
Well, I think they're going to pick somebody in the second then, or move them way up. New Orleans 5-12 last year. Just real quick, they got 9 picks overall. Their number one need is a quarterback, in my opinion. Edge rusher, guard, cornerback, wide receiver. $27.65 million above the cap right now. Their next pick is number 8 in the second round. So they're going to have to wait about 30, 32, 33 picks from now. Derek Carr is their highest paid player. They renegotiated his contract. He's only making $20 million against the cap right now because they gave him everything else in signing bonus. But before we go to Brian with another one, Logan, give me your thoughts here about the Saints.
Yeah, kind of head scratching on this one. I like Kelvin Banks as a player. I think that, at Texas, he did some good work there with the Longhorns, but I thought they were going to go quarterback here. Like you said, that they'd been linked for days now to either Shedeur Sanders or even Jackson Dart. Those were kind of the main two that I've been hearing about. But and like Vincent had mentioned, with Derek Carr, we don't know if he's even going to play this year due to that shoulder injury he suffered. They don't really have another quarterback on their roster that's starter worthy other than Spencer Rattler, who had some games last year. But I think I'm in agreement with you, Harper. I think they'll go a quarterback in the second round, which, a lot of people say, oh, a second round quarterback. I mean, you have all the other ones up here in the first round, especially with Kellen Morris, the new head coach. I thought it would have been a slam dunk for a quarterback here, but they're wanting to build their trenches, and it's a team, like you said, they don't have much cap space. They can't go out and sign free agents like, a lot of other teams. They got some good players, right, with Kamara, who's getting a little bit older. You got Chris Olave, who I still love over there at the wide receiver spot. But, kind of surprised by this one. But I like, overall, though, Kelvin Banks, like I said, good player out of Texas and big guy up front to protect whoever's going to be the quarterback for the Saints this season.
Well, let's just look at the order of the quarterbacks real quick. You've got Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart. Quinn Ewers is still listed as the 4th quarterback that in terms of the rankings out of Texas. Remember Quinn, but I haven't heard anybody talking about him. Jalen Milroe out of Alabama. Will Howard and Tyler Schuff is from Louisville are the top-rated quarterbacks. And maybe they're thinking Will Howard might be a steal, or Jalen Milroe, or any of those others that I mentioned. But, Brian, before we go elsewhere, your thoughts here about the Saints, and if Kelvin Banks, who we all agree is a great lineman, who's he going to be protecting?
It is interesting. I don't know what you do with the quarterback position. I know something was floated out earlier. The Falcons were talking about it. We would move Kirk Cousins even if it was to the New Orleans Saints. We don't really care at this point. So I don't know if that was just maybe something to throw out there as just kind of a curveball, or maybe it was just saying because we hate them so much as Falcons fans, maybe we trade them to whoever. It doesn't really matter. But the Saints have kind of done the same thing the Lions did. They went first round last year was Talisi Fuaga, tackle from Oregon State. They're really prioritizing the offensive line. So maybe the decision is, hey, before we go get our quarterback, let's not get him killed. Let's get him some help. Let's get him the road graders up front to keep our guy upright. I mean, if Derek Carr does sit out, I don't know what behind the scenes there is. They got a ton of stuff to figure out on the offensive side of the football because, the rumors are they've been shopping Alvin Kamara for 2 years also. It's just anything could happen in New Orleans, but I think the safest pick was probably offensive line here, and that's where they went.
Well, they've moved a lot of people around. Their free agent picks, Brandon Cooks, Dante Pettis, Juwan Johnson, Jack Stoll, or receivers and tight ends in that area. They re-signed Cam Jordan. Chase Young has been re-signed as well. Ugo Amade at corner and Isaac Yayadim, and then Justin Reed on the defensive side. But at one point, if I'm not mistaken, Brian, they were $50 million over the cap right after the season was over. So they've moved $70 million worth of assets, if you will, around. But I just don't see if Derek is not going to play. All right, you already got. Okay, we got an update. Let's not talk about the Houdettes anymore. Let's move on to Chicago.
So Colson Loveland is the pick at 10, tight end out of Michigan, which is interesting because there was a lot of people, including myself, who thought Tyler Warren was the best tight end on the board. I don't think Colson Loveland is very far behind him in any capacity. I think the kid is outstanding as well, but interesting to see him go before Tyler Warren. And I'm sure Tyler Warren, the fact that he's at Penn State, seeing the Michigan guy go before him as well, being the second tight end on the board, might not sit too well with him. But yeah, the Bears they're getting a little bit more help as far as the pass catchers for Caleb Williams.
Well, I think Cole Kmet did a great job while he was there. Now, where they have problems, was there a re-signing issue with him that anyone's aware of?
Nothing that I can see. Maybe it's just, hey, let's run 2 tight ends, right? Who knows? Maybe.
Well, I would also think if I'm Chicago, offensive line, then more offensive line is what I would do to match what the Bears have done. Vincent, first and foremost, your thoughts here on Chicago.
I'm very surprised. I got to agree with Brian. I thought they'd take Tyler Warren with this pick. I thought there was they man, looking over all the mock drafts over the last month, they had Tyler Warren going to Chicago. But I understand the pick. Look who their coach is now, Ben Johnson. What did he do in Detroit? Ran a lot of 2 tight end sets. And then think about this. The Bears lost Keenan Allen in free agency at the wide receiver position. So they only got Ronald Duzzi and DJ Moore. So now word on the street is that by them taking this very good player who's a mismatch down the seam in Mr. Colin Loveland, is that this guy team with Cole Collette, they can be Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez too in the National Football League.
Yeah, and if he's a better blocker than he is a receiver, I'll take that over anybody, because if you can't block, there's not a whole lot we can do with you. But if you can block, you can stay in the league for a very, very long time. So that's obviously a Bear decision. We've got another update before we get to Logan. Brian, you want to give us our next update?
So I have Mykel Williams going to the Niners at 11 right now. That's what I'm seeing. I kind of like it. I think it's a lot of teams are good. They're like, hey, let's just try to revamp our defensive lines. Let's get guys that can get after the quarterback and disrupt and cause havoc. And the Niners are really the third team tonight to kind of say, hey, let's go ahead, just see if we can cause as much disruption up front, or front four, as we possibly can.
All right. Well, before we go back to Chicago, Logan, do you have anything you want to do with the Niners, or shall we go straight to Chicago with you?
Just touch on the Chicago real quick, then we'll flip over to the Niners. With Chicago, I mean, I feel like their thunder kind of got stolen. I mean, 3 offensive tackles already taken, and that was their kind of big need. I mean, Caleb Williams got sacked how many times this past season? Yeah. And, I mean, we just saw a back-to-back lineman get picked. So I think they might have had to go with option number 2 or option number 3 in terms of their draft needs. And I like Colston Loveland. I think he's a good player. But like I said, kind of surprised that Tyler Warren, who won the John Mackey Award, didn't go as the first overall tight end taken, but that's just how it goes sometimes in the draft. You get those surprises. You have a coach that, really likes a certain type of player. That's how it'll be. And it's a good weapon, I think, for the Chicago offense. And I'm sure they'll build up that O-line a little bit later in the draft. But for the Niners, with the alleged pick of Mykel Williams, obviously coming out of the back door here in Athens, UGA, great player. Back-to-back all second-team SECs. One of the best maybe run stoppers in the league at his position, and just a tremendous pick, I think, for San Francisco. Had a tough year last year, a lot of injuries, inconsistent play. So if you're sure if your defense here, if you get Mykel, it looks like they are. It looks like I like the pick for the Niners, and I think he'll do good work out there in San Fran.
Well, we went through the Bears so quickly that we won't even talk about the Bears. Unfortunately, we'll just move right on to San Francisco because they're on the clock. And as Brian has mentioned, it looks like their pick is in. And Vincent, I think there is a plethora of Georgia talent, the first of which to go here is Williamson. Give us your perspective on Mykel and the 49er connection.
Very good football player. Remember, they lost Leonard Ford in the offseason. Who did Leonard Ford sign with? Another Georgia guy with the Falcons. But to be honest, Mykel Williams, I thought was a little bit inconsistent. Stayed hurt, nicked up. When he was on the field, he played well. He produced. Me personally, I still like Jalen Walker better than him. Even though Mykel Williams has the measurements, he's a bigger guy. He's got the more NFL pro-ready body. But for my money, if I was the 49ers, I was looking for a guy to rush the passes, Jalen Walker. Whoever gets him coming up in the next picks is going to get a good football player. But as far as the 49ers, I understand the pick. 49ers as an organization has made a lot of changes in the offseason because they're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. So it's going to be very important that they draft a lot of talent this year and their draft becomes real good. Back to you, Hawk.
49ers were 6-11 last year. They have $39.4 million above the cap. They're rated number 4. They've picked up some quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, tight end, guard, defensive lineman, linebacker, a couple of cornerbacks. two safeties. Brian, your first impressions here about the 6-11 49ers taking the first of what we feel will be many different Georgia Bulldogs off the board here today.
I don't mind the pick. I think they got a really good defensive end room. I think they do it right as far as how they coach their guys up. I mean, they're very good defensively. Now, they haven't been as good since Robert Saleh left. They've had some, hiccups as far as transitioning from saying, hey, who's going to call the plays, who's going to make sure everything's in order. But, I don't mind the pick. He's right now the 4th rated defensive end. And you get him at 11, but it's you're prioritizing a key position. Look at how well Bosa's been for them as far as being, like I've been saying, disruptors. They just keep getting guys to go out there, get after the quarterback, wreak havoc on the game. But especially because Bosa's been banged up a lot too, so he hasn't been at 100%. To have another guy on the other end, on the other side, to be able to pick up the slack when he's not playing, or maybe when he's a little banged up and he's not 100%. I think they prioritize that, and I think they really liked him, and that's why they went with the pick.
Yeah. Well, going back just a second, guys, if you don't mind, Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State, was ranked number 13. Colston Loveland, who ends up going to Chicago, was ranked 24th overall, and second in terms of the tight end position itself. Michael Williams is the 17th ranked player right now. Oddly enough, the number 11 player overall, hold on, I had it just a second ago, would be Jahdae Barron. Matthew Golden is still on the board. Shador Sanders is still on the board. So there's a couple of guys that, from a value perspective, we're a little bit higher up. But this is a team need first and foremost. So Michael Williams ended up going to the San Francisco 49ers. A surprise for us in many respects. We thought they would go somewhere differently. Shall we look at the Dallas Cowboys on the board now? You're confirming there that the Michael Williams is in.
Yes.
Correct, right? Okay.
Yep. So
all right.
On to Dallas.
Any other
if
thoughts?
I can say real quick, as far as Chicago is concerned, I think, not to interrupt, but I think Ashton Jeanty was their guy. I'm hearing that they were trying to trade up and they were trying to get him, and they couldn't. The asking price was either too high, or they weren't willing to pay in order to move up and get him. But I think that's why that Loveland was the safe fallback option there for them.
Okay. Well, I think Chicago, if we can stay there just for one more second, guys, please help me. You got to keep your quarterback upright, and he proved with 400 or 500 different sacks that he had last year. That's enough to make everybody go, man, we better invest in our offensive line. And that's where I was thinking that they were going. I have a friend that is a big time Bears fan all the way back previous to the 85 Bears, and he's going line, offensive line. We give me so maybe a second round guard or a third round center, or move yourself inside a little bit more with one of the better players there. But obviously they bypass that. Any other comments about the Bears before we move on?
No,
we're good. All right, let's go San Francisco. Any more additional perspective that you want on the Niners?
No.
But I don't have to hear the announcers talking about how little Brock Purdy's making anymore probably after this year. I don't have to hear Al Michaels being like, he barely afford a house. He got roommates, you guys. Jeez, pay the man.
Yeah. What last year was $1 million. Everybody's going, how on earth can you play for $1 million?
How does he live on $1 million?
How does he do it?
That's what he agreed to, guys. And the 49ers are going to wait till the 5th year before they pay him what they have to do. All right, 7-10 Dallas Cowboys. If there's any team that wants to be important and has struggled with it more than the Cowboys, you tell me who that is, Vincent. And that's not a knock on you. I'm just saying, I know they're your team, but they have struggled and they have some needs. Wide receiver, running back, edge, cornerback, and guard are the most aggressive ones that we're looking at. Kevontae Tarpon, the kick returner, they re-signed him. They got a 3-year, $18 million deal. I'm fascinated with that because here's a guy that does one thing very, very well. If he can play wide receiver and give Dak some time if he comes back, that'll be interesting. They have $38.4 million. They're 6th ranked in terms of cap space. They don't pick again until number 12 in the 2nd round. Vincent, let's talk about your Cowboys.
Well, like I said, first and foremost, when you're America's team and you've still been a team after you won 3 Super Bowls and your last one since 1996, and everyone still talks about you at a high level even when the season's over, you can understand I can be a little arrogant and have a chest out. Royalties in the Cowboys history. Now, for our draft this year, we need a receiver. CD Lamb needs help. Dak Prescott, we paying him as the highest paid player in the league. We're not going to go nowhere if we don't get CD Lamb some help, because last year I think he had more plays than any other Cowboy during the regular season, and he played hurt. I would love to see us take Matthew Golden, the receiver out of Texas, who ran a 4.29 at the combine, or either Luther Burden III out of Missouri, who I consider maybe one of the best after the catch receivers coming into the draft.
Yeah.
Back to you, Mr. LeBel. And I don't mean to get arrogant, but see, you took that shot at me, and
No, I'm not taking shots. I'm not taking shots at Jerry Jones. All right. Hey, Logan, I'm going to go to you next, but you made the call of the night where I don't think that if I'm at Michigan and I'm going to go play for a school or a team that's in Ohio, I may not want to wear my gear. Let's continue with Vincent right now. If I'm Matthew Golden and I'm just moving down the road a little bit from Austin to Dallas, I can still wear my Texas stuff, can't I?
Oh yeah, you don't even have to get a moving company really. You'll be fine. Just load it back in whatever car you're going to get after this pick potentially, and you'll be set.
You might want to get a Tesla truck to carry all your suitcases.
Yeah, I'd about to say make sure you get all the jewelry, all the clothes. You'll be fine. But
all right.
With Dallas, look, I think that wide receiver is the main selection they should go for. I think Matthew Golden would be just fall into their lap. But I want to throw this out here because it is Jerry Jones, right? And he likes to go for the flashy picks. And you did mention quarterback, Harper.
Oh.
You mentioned quarterback. Could we maybe see Shadur Sanders fall here? I'm just going to throw it out there.
Brian, is that on the rumor mill?
You know what? The fact that the pick hasn't been leaked yet is interesting because usually all these other picks are, I got a few minutes ahead of time, but I'm still not seeing anything from Dallas. So Jerry could be doing anything right now. I don't know. Who knows what's going on in that war room?
Interesting. Well, Logan, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but that's a very interesting perspective. Either trading up, trading down, waiting really till the 11th hour for him to make that final. Not him, but the staff there in Dallas to be able to put something together. Would you be surprised if they trade back a couple of slots and maybe still have either Golden or, as Vincent mentioned just a moment ago, there's a couple of other wide receivers. I like Golden's 4.29. That's all I need to hear. How fast are you? 4.29? Okay. And you played for Texas?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I think that's a no-brainer. But Jerry may have something up his sleeve. So, Brian, keep us posting that. But, Logan, I interrupted you, so please forgive me.
He might have something up his sleeve, Harper. We'll see. We're not sure yet. It wouldn't surprise me if they draft, if they trade and they draft back a little bit. I'm not sure how it would be, obviously. But, Vincent, you mentioned another player who you could draft who might fall a little bit later, and that's Luther Burden out of Missouri, I believe. So, a solid player there. But I like Golden. I think that he would work out well with CD. You mentioned Devontae Turpin, Harper, and Dak Prescott, who's got the weight of the world on his shoulders to get a winning team back in there and back in Jerry's world. So I think that would be a good selection there. But look, it's the Cowboys. Who knows?
Well, they've also got a couple of line needs, and with the recent retirement, Martin retires, right? So they've got maybe a second or third round that they would go inside and develop that. The Cowboys have 10 picks, though, so I think it's interesting that they might want to trade back up and get a couple of – Go ahead.
The pick is in.
Here we go.
Brian.
They went inside, didn't they? How about that?
Guard Tyler Booker from Alabama. Yeah. You say the weight of the world's on Dak's shoulders. Hopefully they can keep the weight of the other team's defensive linemen off of his shoulders at least a little bit.
Thank you.
So.
Hope so.
Thank you.
All right.
I want to make sure I've got my information correct. I need to flip one more page, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience. Tyler Booker is the number one guard ranked overall, right? So if you're going to go inside, you're going to go to the best, right, out of Alabama. Anyone want to jump in and talk a little bit about him and the prowess that he brings with him? He's got big shoes to fill, but guess what? He's got big feet. So I think this is a pretty mathematical. A is my need. A is my player that's available. Let's match those two together. Your thoughts, Vincent?
Common sense pick. Like the pick. Safe pick. Very experienced football player coming out of probably the best football program over the last 10 years. Playing under Nick Saban, then Kellen DeBoer. What more can you want? And you just mentioned Harper, he's the number one rated guard, and Dallas needs help on the offensive line based on the fact Zach Martin retired in the offseason. Back to you, Harper.
Yeah, I think probably wanting to trade back a couple slots and still having him there would have been a great business move for the Cowboys, but it didn't happen that way, did it, Logan?
No, it didn't. And like I said, this is a safe pick. We've seen a lot of linemen already picked here in the first 12 draft selections overall. Guy who's back-to-back all SEC selections in 23 and 24, obviously. So it's a good pick here. And we know Alabama had a struggle year last year, we'll just say. But Tyler Booker is just a tremendous guy, a great talent up there on the line. And like I said, you got to protect your quarterback, got to protect your running back. So, like I said, it's a good pick here. I like what Dallas did. And Dak Prescott, I'm sure, is going to get this guy a nice dinner and get to know him very well.
Well, he's 6'5", 325 pounds. He runs a 5.3, 840 is what I'm seeing. But Brian, he's the 35th ranked player overall. I would think that is an early – so you move up with some of these picks in the second round, and he'd still be available if you're looking at the board. If you're only looking at the board and you're looking at all these other guys that are ahead at that one day, you will say, why didn't we pick him? Dallas is going to, have to assume the responsibility of, look, he was available. He was a need. We went and got him.
Well, I will say this. He was the only guy to run out of the tunnel, and he gave Roger Goodell the longest hug. So I don't know if that's worth anything, but he seems very excited to be picked. And I think for Dallas, he's excited, right? I think he still played for the University of Alabama, right? That should still mean something. He's still a Saban boy, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So yeah. I like him. I think he did nothing but play really well in the SEC, which Vincent has put into. He said multiple times he's making sure we know that it's still the best conference in college football, and they were, like Logan said, a down year. They're still one of the best teams in the country. They're still flirting with the playoff spot. I mean, he was very, very good. Obviously, Alabama fell off a little bit, but I mean, like, come on, he can play. The rankings, again, you got to throw them out the window when you look at some of these needs. The Cowboys felt, hey, we need to run the ball a little bit well, which they did not do last year. If you remember, they haven't run the ball. I mean, I know, look, Zeke maybe took a little turn for the worst. He went downhill, but I think the offensive line, they haven't been healthy. And you lose Martin and you lose a lot of these guys, and you say, hey, listen, we got to retool. We got to keep our $50 million quarterback upright. They did that. I like the pick.
All right. Well, it is in. Tyler Booker out of the University of Alabama is now the newest Dallas Cowboy. And I'm wondering if he lifted Roger Goodell off his feet like some of the linemen like to seem to do. So we'll find out whether we got highlights of that on a later show. Miami Dolphins are on the clock right now. At 8-9 last year, Miami needs safeties, guards, tackles, defensive tackles, offensive, linebackers. Zach Wilson was their biggest move here in the offseason as a free agent. They have $17.29 million in cap space. They're 24th in the league there. And Tua Tagovailoa at 27 years old is their highest paid player at $39.1 million. Vincent, let's talk about the Miami Dolphins.
I think Brian might have an update.
Well, I'm just saying the Dallas Cowboys have 3 first-round offensive linemen, all with the first name Tyler. So you might have some guys going by some middle names or maybe initials in that offensive line room. So
there were many Ohio State offensive linemen, remember, named Joshua, and Josh Simmons, who's their first, he's the first-rated tackle that's still on the board. His nickname was Jimmy. So I'm wondering if all these guys are going to come up with a goofy nickname.
Or at least the coach.
The coach is going to have to do something like that. All right. So Tyler Booker, let's move on with him. Vincent, go ahead. Finish your thought here on Miami.
I see a safety here. I see Malachi Starks, another Georgia great, going with the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins need some help here based on the fact Devon Holland moved on. I think this would be an excellent pick.
Logan? Yep.
I mean, yeah, definitely could be, some work down there in the secondary. You also mentioned they need some help on the offensive line, which we've seen a lot of linemen taken already. One that you just mentioned, Harper, Josh Simmons, who's still out there at Ohio State. Guy who was our last NFL draft prospect we covered for today's show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he very well could go there and protect Tua, who we know has had some issues over the last couple of years. But Wouldn't surprise me if they go to the Athens route and pick up another Georgia player, another just good corner that they could maybe pick up. Jahdae Barron out of Texas, another player. There's a couple of options you could go with here if you are the Dolphins. But I wouldn't be surprised if they go with the O-line, since that's kind of been the trend we've seen today.
Yeah, they picked 13th here in the first round, the 16th overall pick in the second round, Brian. They have 10 picks, so I think they have the ability. They don't need to move up or down right now. They are on the clock, but they've got a lot of different needs. And, Miami has been one of those teams that they were in second place when when the Patriots were as good as they were, and just not. And now that the Bills have surpassed them, leapfrog over them, they're still that team that's like, we're right there. We're better than the Jets, but we haven't been able to overplay anybody in terms of winning the division now for years. What do you think the Dolphins are going to plan on?
The thing is, there's still a lot of really good players left on the board. I think there's a lot of guys that fell into the lap. I think their priority one should be, if Tua is their guy, his health. It's got to be priority one, just because, you've seen kind of the hits he's taken, kind of some disastrous level injuries, some scary stuff. I do like going safety. I think Malachi Starks, I think if you ask a lot of people, he might be the best player on the board right now. I know safety is typically overlooked, but he's an impact player. I think he can do a little bit of everything. He's a phenomenal cover safety. He can come up and tackle. He does really, really well. I like how Vincent alluded to that. I wouldn't be surprised to go there. Nothing's in yet. The Dolphins are kind of taking their time, or at least there's nobody in that war room that is leaking. Actually, you know what? It just came in as I said that. Michigan defensive tackle Kenneth Grant is the pick for the Miami Dolphins at 12.
Okay.
So that is their selection. They get a defensive tackle, address the interior issue on defense.
I would think, as soon as you said Michigan, I'm thinking, okay, Will Johnson. They're going to go with him.
Yeah.
But no, Will is much higher rated than Kenneth Grant. Kenneth is number 21 overall, at least on some of the websites that I've seen. 6'3", 340-pounder, 5'11", 5.11 in his 40-yard dash. He has a national championship, and next to Mason Graham, he's one of those guys that go, hey, I'm here too. You're not going to be able to run against us. Vincent, your thoughts?
Built like a deep freezer. Really strong in the middle. A lot of people saying he was a better prospect than Mason Graham over the last few weeks. I love the pick for the Dolphins because they needed some help on the defensive side of the ball. Like Brian said, Tua is going to be that man at the quarterback position. He stay healthy. Another, I want to say, common sense, solid pick for the Dolphins. Back to you, Harp.
Well, at 340 pounds, Logan, I don't think he's going to be able to take training camp heat unless he says, hey, I'm a little famished and I need some more water. Don't need to be 340 in Miami, but it certainly helps when you go up to Buffalo, when you go up to New England, when you go up to play the Jets in December.
Yeah, Vincent, you made a great analogy. You feel like a deep freeze. He's going to clog the running lanes. He's just an absolute monster there on the D-line. You can't miss him from a mile away. I like the pick. I think, like I said, some people might say, a little surprised with this one. But I think it's good because, like I said, you got to have that good D-line there in Miami. And they're just trying – they have a bunch of positions they need to fill and they need to get a little bit better at. And they felt that, obviously, Kenneth Grant and his championship pedigree, they hopefully can bring that down there to Miami and that they can get some good work in there. But I like the pick. And like I said, he is might want to keep some water stat by him down there in those hot training camps. It's going to be a little bit rough for him, I think.
Well, Brian, before we go to you in Miami, let's get an update. It looks like the Colts have made their selection.
So the Colts were very high on Tyler Warren from what I'm reading, and that is their guy at 14. They're going to get some help for Anthony Richardson and maybe throw the ball a little bit this year because, man, they struggled in the pass game last year. But they get Tyler Warren, who we thought was the top tight end. He goes second behind Loveland, but he goes still top 15 pick.
Yeah, 14th is the number here. The Colts, they're 8-9 also. Tight end, guard, cornerback, linebacker, edge rusher. They've only got 7 picks, so they really needed to nail this. They got $23.9 million in the cap. But if tight end is one of their basic first needs, and you're getting the 13th best player with the 14th and the best number 1 tight end on the board, Vincent, that's a steal.
I love the pick, man. First of all, Anthony Richardson is going to help him out a lot. Safety valve type player. What I like about Tyler Warren, really didn't know about him a lot, but I remember following college football through the regular season. I go back to one game, the University of Southern California out there in the LA Memorial Coliseum. 17 receptions, 244 yards, and 1 touchdown. But it was a catch in that game that he made that was very athletic. Then I started following him throughout the season. I like how Penn State used him on tight end reverses. They even have him throwing passes off of reverse. This is a very, very productive football player and went to a perfect situation. Anthony Richardson, what you need to be doing once this young man comes to Indianapolis on his, I want to say draft visit tomorrow, and he's a coach, you need to take him out to dinner and say, hey, man, let's go to work. This is a very good, solid football player that is not going to hurt your team. Back to you, Harp.
Yeah, real quick, Logan, before I go to you with Colt news, Brian, with the Falcons are on the clock, correct?
Falcons are on the clock. The Colts, it's officially ESPN says the pick is in. They haven't produced yet, but the Falcons are now on the clock.
Okay. Logan, give me your thoughts here on the Indianapolis Colts going with the best tight end that's available, a guy that as a Raider fan, you've realized what Brock Bowers was able to do here for the Raiders. You think that has the same type of follow-up and avalanche effect where it's going to affect and really open some things up in the middle for the Colts?
I mean, you would hope so, right? If you're a Colts fan, with Anthony Richardson having we'll just call it a roller coaster year, really ever since he got drafted there. This is a great player you're drafting here. Really solid tight end. They got some, like I said, they got some younger pieces still. They got Alec Pierce, who's been consistent from them, drafted out of Cincinnati a couple of years ago. Michael Pittman Jr., of course, who they've had there. So I think now that you pair that with like I said, one of the top tight ends in the draft, in Tyler Warren, who is just an absolute unit in the red zone. If you get him, I mean, he can convert any catch you need him to. He can catch at the high point. He's a good blocker as well. So he provides pretty much anything you need at that tight end spot. So I love the pick here for Indy. And like Vincent said, if you're Anthony Richardson, take him out to dinner, get to know him, because they're going to be having a lot of connections this year. I think that could be a pretty good combo.
Well, before we go to you, Brian, I'm just going to say Matthew Golden, Johnny Barron, Shedeur Sanders are all ranked. They're going, wait, what's going on? What? There are little nerves going on right now. But, Brian, let's go with you and the Colts. And I'm seeing value all over the place with Tyler.
I think if you have a young quarterback, I think one of the best things you can do is get him that safety valve, right? Get him there. It's a security blanket. Get him a tight end. Look, he's the closest to the quarterback. He's going to drop back on every single play. He gets open. He's got good hands. He can do everything for you. I think it's a really good pick here. I think, Anthony Richardson, he's got all the arm strength in the world, and a lot of those deep throws wow you. But the intermediate stuff and some of that too is like, hey, maybe the Colts struggle a little bit with weapons. But I think this kind of eliminates all of that. And even if Anthony Richardson isn't the guy, if he doesn't end up being their quarterback of the future, I think he still has, if they bring another quarterback, again, another young guy, having that safety valve, the security blanket at tight end. And I think Tyler Ward, I thought he was the best tight end in the draft. They get him at 14. I kudos to them. I love the pick.
Yeah. Here's another thing about a good tight end will make a quarterback that has a bad throw look good. Right? He'll make that catch for you. And that's not easy to do, especially when you've got linebackers and safeties that are draped all over somebody. It doesn't have to be a great throw, but you want that, obviously. But Tony Gonzalez is the first guy I think of that, you know what, he puts his body between the defender and when the ball coming at him. Tyler Warren certainly was a great example of that at Penn State. Obviously, one of those guys that just help you move the ball. All right, Brian, any update here with the Falcons on the clock before I give some basics on Atlanta's situation?
Nothing yet. No, nothing to report.
All right. For all of us who are here in the Atlanta area, the 8-9 Falcons, their biggest needs, according to many of the pundits that are out there, edge, defensive tackle, because you lose Grady Jarrett, you lose your center, so that's another need. We need another safety. You need a wide receiver. Those are among the basic needs that the Falcons have. They have $10.6 million above cap space. That puts them 28th in the league. They've only got 5 picks, and they don't pick again until the 14th pick in the second round. So, Vincent, let's turn local here and talk a little bit about the Atlanta Falcons.
We all know that the Falcons need an edge rusher. That's been their primary need for the last 3 seasons. But I'm looking at last year, they need help on the back end. I like the guy you've been talking about all evening, Mr. Harper LeBel, Will Johnson out of Michigan, because he's versatile. He can play in the slot. He can play safety, but he's a big guy, 6'2", 205, and teaming him on the other side with A.J. Terrell, I think will be very good for the Falcons. And I'm going to say this about Will Johnson. He got nicked up this year. Some people say his game took a step back at Michigan, didn't play a lot of football, but all I can remember is that he was the most defensive MVP in the national championship game. And his coverage that night on Rome Duzzi, Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan, all those guys last year started in the National Football League. So if I was the Falcons and I didn't really feel good on any of the edge rushers right now that's on the board, such as Jalen Walker or Mike Green, then Will Johnson would be my pick because I got him listed as the number 2 corner on my board.
Well, Johnny Barron is another guy. Would you be upset if they get him and he's still available? He's the number 11 guy on many people's boards. He's only 5'11", and he's about 200, runs a 4.39 is what I'm saying. So just real quick question. Between the two of them, you still like Will?
I wouldn't have no problem with Mr. Barron, but I like Mr. Johnson because he's a bigger player.
Yeah.
And, that's the only reason I would like Mr. Johnson. I think that he'll fit the Falcon scheme. I think that really I like bigger, more physical players at that position.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have no problem if they took the young man out of Texas.
And as I mentioned earlier, Logan, in the show, is that Will Johnson's a guy that if he can play safety for you, not that he ever would right now, he's a corner, but he can play in the slot and move down into the box on third down and short yardage situations. Those are some of the things that I think his versatility along with his speed and his size. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think both of those options there are good for the Falcons. I think we all can agree that defense is where they need to go here for this unit. I will throw another name out here. We're going to go children of the corn, guys. Malachi starts.
Yeah.
I mean, that local Georgia kid could go here to the Falcons and could do some work. But, if they go anywhere other than defense, that might be a bigger shock than it was last year when they got Michael Penix.
I don't say this enough, but when I played for Atlanta and Rankin Smith, who was the owner of the team, who had ties and had given a lot of his fortune to the University of Georgia, the Falcons their team colors were taken from the Georgia Bulldogs, but they would not take a Bulldog player. Very seldom, only in the late round. I think there was some criticism that locals were going, why do you not do that? There was a reason. I just don't know it. I can't confirm it, but it seemed like they would avoid. It'd be like Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh players never playing for the Steelers. It doesn't make sense, all right? You want to get the best player. So if the Falcons do go with the Georgia Bulldog, that would almost be against the grain. But Brian, your thoughts here, and has there been any progression here with the Falcons being on the clock?
They are taking the full time allotted, it seems. They got about 1:20 left on the screen. Okay. I know it's a little late, but all right. I will say this as a Falcons fan, might make you a little sick to your stomach, but Shedeur Sanders is still on the board, right? You could still go quarterback. You could add another QB, you know?
Well, we could put 3 quarterbacks on the field at the same time and be the only team in the league that would do that.
But the fact that they still haven't made a decision yet is interesting.
Well,
it means they're mulling their options. They might have had 2 or 3 names, and all the guys that they wanted are available. So we'll wait and see. Or maybe they wanted Tyler Warren really bad, and he's gone. Now they don't know what to do. I don't know.
Well, I'm thinking they're going to take all their time just because if they can trade back and get a 6th pick somehow or another 2nd rounder or anything in the 3rd, that would be interesting if they don't have to give up too much real estate to do that. Because if you have Barron on the board, you got Johnson on the board, you got Malachi Starks. There's some defensive stalwarts that are out there that you would obviously want to have, but you don't need them right at this moment.
Well, ESPN has they said they had a less than 1% chance of Jalen Walker being available at 15. They just showed him. I don't know if that's foreshadowing. The pick is in. I don't have anything leaked as of yet, but they could go in any direction here because this draft's been a little wonky as far as the defensive line, which I think we kind of predicted, but a lot of offensive tackles going early as well. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So the pick was Jalen Walker. The Falcons get a Georgia Bulldog, Jalen Walker at pick 15. So there you go. All that. Listen, we didn't know until now. I promise you, it was foreshadowing. But yeah, Jalen Walker's the pick at 15. So the Georgia fans and the Falcons fans can kind of calm down a little bit. Okay, we got a pass rusher. He's a Georgia Bulldog. Let's go.
Well, everyone thought that Mike Green was going to be his guy, right? Or be the guy that was picked in the slot. Tell me why Jalen Walker's at 6'2", 245 pounds, runs 4.5. Oh, gosh. Tell me why that's a better pick. Because he's more an inside guy, right? Remind me, he's an inside. You know, do we move Trey Henderson? Do we move him? Trey Anderson, excuse me.
I mean, he can kind of do everything. You know, he's if you watch his tape, he's very quick. He's got tremendous football instincts. I mean, he does everything really, really well. He's a game changer on defense. He's one of those. There's a lot of like linebacker tweener players from Georgia that do that, and Walker just kind of fits the mold. And you look at how he's built and how he runs, everything he does. You're like, this person shouldn't exist, right? But he's here, and the Falcons got him. So hey, it's a great pick.
Yeah. Well, he's ranked number 23 on my board. Vincent, what are your thoughts here now with the Falcons making their pick at its end?
Love what the Falcons just done. I think they picked the best edge rusher out of the draft. And I say this, number one, he played in a program, back-to-back national champions. He won the Buckus Award. He performed on the field. I'm going to let the mic drop on this. Game film against Texas. 8 tackles that evening, 3 sacks, forced fumble. On the year, 10.5 tackles for loss. You can move him all over the field. And to be honest, I think he's one of the best Georgia defensive players I've seen play since I've been in this area since 1996. I love the young man. Back to you, Harp.
Logan?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this pick. And they broke the golden rule, I guess, right, Harper? They picked someone from Georgia in Jalen Walker. Great player. Obviously, we saw him at Georgia here in our backyard here. You pair him, right, with a lot of the young guys. I mean, let's not forget they drafted Braylon Trice last year, who unfortunately didn't get to see much of the field because he was injured. But, I mean, they have Ruka Rororo, who they drafted last year, kind of a project pick out of Clemson, as well as all the other tremendous guys on their defense they're hoping can step up. But I like this one, man. And I see he's got the red suit on, so he must have been foreshadowing this all in all. But yeah, great pick here, and hopefully he can be the hometown guy. The fans are gonna love him. His jersey's gonna sell out quick. So if you want one, go ahead and get one.
Brian, your thoughts here? You got a smile on your face. Falcons defense, did it get better?
I mean, I don't know how he fell so far. You know, I know he's kind of a tweener. They have him listed as a linebacker, but he's a 4.5 40 guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, if he has a light breakfast, he's sub 4.5. I just don't understand how you let a guy. I mean, he's all over the field. I mean, he's doing it, like we've said, in the SEC, and he's wreaking havoc against LSU and Alabama. And ask a Tennessee Volunteer fan how they feel about him. Right? They hate this guy. Good thing he's gone. Right? But it's just. I don't know. Hey, listen, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. He fell to 15. The Falcons, maybe it was just sheer shock in the war room that, like, hey, he's still here and we're going to be able to draft him. So maybe that's why it took so long for them to pick.
Yeah. A little interesting then. You know, we've talked about a couple of the other Texas players, for example, Shador, Josh Simmons still available, obviously Will Johnson, and that's another one that we won't see them for very much longer. But between Michael Williams, Malachi Starks, and Jalen Walker, the Georgia Bulldogs are fast disappearing. All right, as Logan, I appreciate you doing so. The Falcons pick is in, so let's talk about number 16 going to Arizona real quick. Arizona was 8-9. Edge rusher, wide receiver, cornerback, offensive guard, and defensive tackle. They have $32.6 million under the cap. They have 6 draft picks total this year. Their next pick will be the second round, the 15th pick in that round. They've had free agents with quarterback, a couple of wide receivers, tight ends, 2 tackles, some guards. So they made some moves offensively, 3 edge rushers, 2 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers. Talk a little bit about the Arizona Cardinals and their needs, Vincent.
I think when you look what they did last year, they took Marvin Harrison Jr., number 4. You're looking at their roster, I think they're going to get him a piece on the side of him. I like Luther Burden III. Receiver out of Missouri, going right out there and playing on the other side of them, simply because Luther Burden III is the best, as I said, after the catch runner that's coming into the draft in a long time. And I think he's the best slot receiver. Causes a lot of problems in the slot. And you got Marvin Harrison out there on the island, probably can get man-to-man coverage. Kyler Murray stays healthy. I think Arizona can go up another notch offensively. Back to you.
Yeah, their tight end, they re-signed him, the kid from Colorado State. They've got a good offense. Kyler Murray can stay healthy and you protect him. He's so little that he gets around and buys extra time. But offensively, that would be a good pick. And then Matthew Golden's still out there. He's a 4.29 guy. You'd certainly want that. Before we go any further, Logan, any updates for you?
Matthew, I think Matthew Golden would be a good selection here for the wide receiver. But if they want to go with a D line, a guy who, Vince, I know you love, Walter Nolan out there at Ole Miss. I think that he would work really well out there in Arizona. Could wreak some havoc out there on the D line. And like I said, Kyler Murray, get a couple more weapons for him. They got Marvin Harrison Jr. last year, who he's still going up and up, right? His draft stock, his just status as a great receiver is still going up. Still just only 1 year in, but I think the Cardinals got a lot of different slots to pick for here. So not super sure where they're going to go at this moment, but we'll see what happens with it.
Brian?
Yeah. So as you say that, the Cardinals are taking Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolan at pick 16.
All right.
So there you go. That's hey.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. I'll call it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The time. Hey, listen. That's twice in a row. Hey, we're on it a little bit here. So experts go to
Let's give Logan his flowers this evening.
There you go. Yeah, Walter Nolan.
Yes, sir.
Good pick. Good pick. I like this from Arizona.
Vincent, this guy was big, powerful, fast, first move. He was on a really good team this year. Just missed the playoff first step type guy. Avoids double teams, gets out of them. I can't call it a steal, but what a great pick this is going to be for Arizona.
Gentleman played at Texas A&M, was highly recruited, was a 5-star, left Texas A&M, wanted to come down closer to home. I don't want to throw it out there, but he was born in the 901, Memphis, Tennessee, my hometown.
You sure you don't want to throw? You sure you don't want to throw that out there?
Well, I already thrown it out there.
Oh, never mind. All right.
Okay. But make a long story short, I had him as my second defensive tackle on my board behind Mason Graham. Go look at the game film, especially against LSU. He was a havoc, as you just said. Hop, big guy, big solid guy inside. Very excellent pick for Arizona. And I like what the coach is doing out there. The head coach, Jonathan Gannon, like what he's doing out there in Arizona in the last couple of drafts. Look what he did last year. He took Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a decent rookie year. He took Darius Robinson at the end of the first round last year. He played pretty well out of Missouri. Now you get Walter Nolan. Hey, and I believe the Cardinals, they were like 5-3 at one time last season, right? And then the wheels kind of came off. But I like what they're doing in Arizona. Very excellent pick. Back to you, Hawk.
All right. Well, Logan, since you've already talked about him, do you want to finish up and give me anything else about Walter, or do you want to go straight to Cincinnati?
Yeah, I'll finish up here, give my thoughts on Cincinnati, and I'll head out for the night here. But Walter Nolan, man, love the pick. I think this is A-plus talent here for Arizona. I think they're really building a good program here, good culture, a lot of good talents coming out of college and now coming into the league. Just got to hope that those prospects can hit, right? And for Cincinnati, I mean, look, Joe Burrow, please just get me some offensive line now. Please help me out here. Might be a Josh Simmons type situation. We haven't seen him drafted yet. They could always bolster that offense, but they do need some defensive help as well. But Cincinnati's a bit of a sticky situation because a lot of people thought they'd be a lot better last year. It turned out, had a rough go at it, but we'll see how the Bengals and that front office decides to go in the 2025 NFL draft.
All right. Are you going to head out right now?
Yep. I'm headed out for the night, guys. Bring it on strong, and I'll see y'all later.
All right. Well, thank you.
Have a blessed evening, Logan.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
Logan's going to be the guy that goes, for the rest of the year, he's going to be shining his nails on his chest going, I picked it. And then I can't do any better than that. I'm out of here. So
I'll get the plaque engraved. How about that? All right, see you guys.
As Bill Belichick has said on numerous occasions, and it's one of the funnier lines that any coach will do when you don't want to talk about anything, it's on to Cincinnati. Brian, it's on to Cincinnati right now.
Yep. It's real interesting because depending on some of the trades they could make, some of the guys that they might have to end up. Because listen, when you're giving your quarterback $40+ million and your number one wide receiver $40+ million and your number two wide receiver $22+ million, you kind of have to make cuts elsewhere. But you would kind of hope that if you're going to do so, you could add some capital. There were a couple of names that were floated out there, potential trade targets for the Bengals to add some capital in order to add to we'll call it a budgeting roster, because from here on out, everyone's going to have to be a budget player. But ton of different directions that they could go here. I think as long as they get better, offensive line, obviously, hey, Joe Burrow's not going to complain. but they could go defense as well. Anything they could do to improve the team. I don't think they need a quarterback or wide receiver, though. I'll cross those two off. I think they're good in both of those departments.
Safe bet. Yeah, that's a good one right there. But with the Hendrickson situation there at edge, do you think they move up with that and then basically assure that there's going to be a trade? They might do it either later today or tomorrow and get another draft pick or do something like that, or you let him go? How do you figure that out for the Bengals?
Well, what's interesting is if you're Cincinnati, the idea is we have a very good roster now. We're paying a lot of guys now, so we want to compete right now, right? We have to catch the Ravens. They're ahead of us right now. We got to catch up to those guys. The biggest issue, though, is a team that's going to trade. They're not going to want to give up capital this draft. They're going to be, okay, now the draft's over. We'll give you capital for 365 days for now. But the Bengals are like, hey, we want to draft players tonight. So, unfortunately for them, I feel like there's potentially not going to get, again, like if you're going to get Hendrickson, you're going to want at least one first rounder out of the mix. I just don't see it happening now, especially this late, unless it happens at the 11th hour. But, I mean, if they're going to move him later on, though, they could go edge here. They could get somebody and potentially foreshadow their futures here in the coming days.
Yeah, interesting. All right, before Vince and I get your thoughts, let's look at the 9 and 8, right? So that's the first team now that has a winning record that's going to be picking here at the draft. They've got 6 total picks. They have $24.2 million. They're 17th, and they're picking 17th. So there's some matchup there. Cornerback, edge, wide receiver, tight end, guard are the biggest needs right now here for Cincinnati. They've signed 3 defensive tackles. They've signed an edge and a cornerback, a linebacker. So the defensive side they've kind of taken care of. They signed 2 wide receivers also, Vincent, a running back and 2 tight ends. So give me your perspective here on the Cincinnati Bengals here picking 17th.
Really, really surprised they gave T. Higgins all that money as a number 2 receiver. I really didn't understand that move personally. Then I'm personally surprised they haven't re-signed Trey Hickerson. So I'm looking at the Bengals right now, as Brian just brought up. Joe Burrow is let's face reality. He's your king. You got to protect him. But also, too, you're going to need help in the D-line and have somebody get after a passer if you don't re-sign Mr. Hickerson. So my thinking is that you got Josh Simmons still on the board, local guy, played at Ohio State, or either if you need defensive line help. Everybody keep talking about Mike Green was that guy at Marshall. So those are 2 guys right now. If I'm a Bengal brass, I'm looking at right now. Back to you, Hawk.
Well, Samaje Perine, who's been around now, Oklahoma alum, was a free agent signing. They gave Jamar Chase a 4-year, $161 million extension. T. Higgins signed a 4-year, $115 million deal. And it says Higgins has a non-exclusive franchise tag placed on him for the 2nd straight year. That was after the signing. Mike Gesicki, they bring him in. Tanner Hudson at tight end also. So offensively, they made some moves, at least for the shine, right, the sizzle. Tanner Hudson, Lucas Patrick, Cody Ford are 3 offensive linemen that they've signed. A couple of defensive guys as well. So, yeah, an edge would be a very interesting pick here. You have you're in, Brian? You got it?
They went edge. They took Shamar Stewart at 17 from Texas A&M. So maybe Hendrickson is out the door. We just don't know it yet. Or, maybe they want to do what everyone else is doing because everyone else has been doubling up on their pass rushers on the outside tonight, right? Maybe they're saying, hey, we'd like to get on that. But if not, I mean, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Hendrickson is in the last year of his contract, correct? So
yes,
this is the last year they have rights to him. So they'd have to move him probably, minimum before training camp. So I don't know what you do. But yeah, they take Shamar Stewart at 17, which is interesting. This is a very strong defensive end draft. But yeah, I like the pick. I don't hate it.
All right, talk a little bit about Shamar Stewart. 6'6", 290, runs a 4.59 is what I'm seeing. Are you kidding me? There's nobody that's that big that can run that fast that would be that low on the board, unless one of the drawbacks, Brian, is that he doesn't have a whole lot of sacks at A&M. He's a great player. They can work with him, but could he play in the 7 or the 5 or the 3 technique? Can you move him around? Is that another reason why you'd want to pick him?
I think because of his size. He's a big dude. He's a very big guy. So I think if he is comfortable moving around, which I'm sure, hey, if you're paying me enough money, I'll play a 3 tech. I'll play wherever you want me to play. It doesn't really matter. But he's got the size to be able to play inside with the big boys. I think his idea is probably more run stopper right now, right? That's probably his MO is like, hey, I can set the edge. And he's a very, very difficult guy to move because of his size and his strength. So maybe again he's your run stopper. Maybe they're keeping Hendrickson and he's your other guy that can kind of help on 3rd and short. Which, let's be honest, the Bengals defensively, haven't been great as of recently. Hendrickson is the bright spot, but this certainly buffs it up, even if they have to move him.
Interesting. All right, your scenario here, Vincent.
Very good looking football player, no question about it. 5-star to Texas A&M. But I got to be true who I am. Got to agree with Harp. I didn't like the production he had in college. So I'm worrying about who's the Cincinnati D-line coach, because it seemed like he's going to have to coach up to his potential. Then I wonder, he had a very good head coach, Mike Elko, this year at Texas A&M. We know Mike Elko can coach defense, and he still wasn't productive. But he's got the measurements, had an outstanding combine. The only problem with me, if you know me, I'm a production guy on the next level. I'm a guy that speaks facts. I look at the film and I look at your production. He just didn't give me enough production. But the Bengals, if they got a D-line that can coach him up, there's a lot of potential, a lot of Pro Bowl potential. But that's my only problem with him. Back to you, Hart.
Give me a little more insight on this. When you're watching film and you're seeing things, he's getting across the line of scrimmage, whatever, but he's not making tackles. I mean, he doesn't have the numbers. That's what the production is about. That's so important to you.
Well, a lot of things, like I said, I didn't watch a lot of Texas A&M football, so I'm not going to be judging him. I'm only reading what I'm reading from other guys and watching play. They say sometimes he doesn't bring the mortar every play. The oil is starting to drip out of the mortar. That's the most problem with him. But as far as having the measurements, the athletic ability, testing well, he's a very excellent player. A lot of people saying he's got Javon Clowney type skills. But going back to Texas A&M, playing in the toughest conference, only having 4.5 sacks in 3.5 years, that's the reality of it. It bothers me personally. But, hey, the guy's got the measurements. He was a 5-star coming out of the Miami area, very highly recruited football player, went down to Texas A&M. Hey, I understand that. But if I'm going to be true to who I am, and I look at all the great players, it's production when you're going into the National Football League. Back to you, Hart.
Yeah, well, if it says he's a defensive force, but 6 or 4.5 sacks in 3 years. Brian, your thoughts?
Maybe the idea is they see something on film that they really like and they can improve upon. Maybe they're like, hey, if you do this with your hands instead of this, you're going to be able to get around guys a little bit quicker. Sometimes that's the case, especially, his intangible stuff, his speed, his size. I think the motivation, like Vincent said, it could be a motivation thing. Like, maybe he feels more comfortable setting the edge and saying, hey, I'm going to make sure maybe I don't get a sack, but you're not running the ball here. The quarterback's not going to get around me on this side. But, you love to see the production, right? You want that's why a lot of people talk about Mike Green. The sacks just jump out at you, right? And it's just, it's something that if you're looking for that, especially if you're going to have to replace Trey Hendrickson, who's one of the top 3 or 4 guys in the league at getting to the quarterback, getting sacks, you kind of want more there. But again, maybe Cincinnati sees something we don't, and they like him. He's the number 2 rated edge for a reason, but you need more production.
All right. Well, it's in, right? Shamar Stewart, and now we're looking at the Seattle Seahawks, another team, 10-7. They're picking 18th right now. Wide receiver, guard, center, tackle, and edge. Maybe they're a little upset that this tackle-edge combo just left them. They got 10 picks this year, though. They got the room to work around this. Their next pick will be number 18 overall in the second round. They got $35.676 million above the cap. They're 7th rated right there. During the offseason, they added 2 quarterbacks, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a tackle offensively on the defensive side, an edge, a defensive lineman, a linebacker, and a cornerback. Vincent, first and foremost, let's go with you on your opinion about the Seattle Seahawks and their pick here at number 18.
Go to Brian. I think the pick is in.
Already. Wow. I'm sorry. I missed who was you talking? Brian, just speak up, man. He's in.
My eyes got a little wide when you said tackle because they took Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State.
Yeah.
He's one of the top tackles. I think he's probably a top guy still available at the position.
Well, Josh Simmons was rated a little bit above him, but Josh had a knee issue, and then they're going to look at the next guy down on the list. And Vincent, tell me your thoughts here first and foremost about Gray.
Well, we should know him up close and personal because we did a video on him here on 100 Yards of Football, and I think both of us agree what we loved about him. He's played all 5 positions on the offensive line. Very versatile guy, lean, tall, strong. I think a very excellent pick for Seattle since they gave $100 million to Sam Darnold. He needs somebody helping within that offensive line, and I love the pick. Back to you, Harp.
Yeah, he does a bunch of things. He's just a nasty guy. I think he spits a lot, and he probably cusses a little bit, and he kicks people in the shins a little, if you know what I mean. But Brian, Seattle wasn't waiting very long for this. They hadn't needed the position. Obviously, they went with Gray over Josh Simmons, who is the only other guy that's on the board that is in that caliber. So an interesting selection to where you pass over one to get to the other. Gray was ranked on the board that I have number 31 overall. So I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be a need. And if there's going to be a run on tackles, let's get one before we wait until the second round.
It's interesting. Simmons' injury must be a little bit more severe than what we've been led on to because, like you say, he's a good player, and that could be it, especially if you're looking at a guy who can come in and maybe make an impact now. Maybe you're just wondering, hey, we don't want to spend a top 20 pick on a guy that we don't know if he's going to be around, if it's going to linger, whatever it might be. Yeah. Especially because a lot of these guys are keeping it close to the chest on some of the severity of these injuries. You're not ever really sure. And a lot of these prospects are. I'm not going to reveal everything. It's wait for pro day, wait for this, wait for that. But I think the pick is good. I think if you watch the playoff game for the Vikings, Sam Darnold was on his butt a lot. He looked bad. That was probably his worst outing, but they really got exposed as far as having, okay, our offensive line isn't very good. We need to adjust this. I think maybe Seattle watched that film and said, you know what, let's make sure that doesn't happen to us. Mm-hmm. There was a run on tackles. We're running out of guys ranked in the top 10, so they go and they get their guy.
Yeah, he may have been a second-round guy, but number 5 overall in terms of the tackle, and the only one above him was Josh Simmons, as we just mentioned. So that pick in there for Seattle. Vincent, any comment before we move on to Tampa into the division here?
Let's move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, Boomer Sooner.
Yeah, I think if anybody right now has a chance of getting a statue after they build the one for Tom Brady, it'll be Baker. I think he's fit in very well with Tampa. Offensively, I'm not saying he's setting records every time he throws the ball, but it sure seems like that. A lot of weapons to go to, and I think he's found a home there to where the offense, the strategy that you have, and the talent that is around has mixed quite well. Tampa Bay at 10-7, cornerback, edge, linebacker on the defensive side. Getting a little long in tooth, Mike Evans. There's a couple other guys that have been around for a while. So wide receiver and tight end are other spots. Tampa only has 6 picks as well, guys, so they need to really nail it. Their next pick will be in the second round, number 21 overall. They have $32.4 million under the cap. They're ranked 9th right now in the NFL in terms of that category. But, Vincent, your thoughts here about the Buccaneers?
Love the Buccaneers organization right now. A lot of people had thrown Baker Mayfield under the bus. Looked like he was going to be leaving the league real soon, and everybody was going to say overall bust. But, man, he's got down into Tampa, and Tampa's went to another level offensively. And think about this. He went to a situation where you had a veteran receiver that's going to be a Hall of Famer, Mike Evans, and he earned the trust from him. He earned the trust from Chris Godwin. And I'm going to be honest. If Baker Mayfield doesn't play at a high level, Todd Bowles get fired. It's that simple.
Okay.
And I love what he's done. And last year, I watched the players around Baker Mayfield, especially the rookie running back, Bucky Irvin, how he cleaned to him. Then how the defense cleaned to him, how Levante David accepted him. Man, he played special last year. And think about this, since he's been there, the Buccaneers are advanced in the playoffs. So this pick right here, they need to find a replacement for Levante David. Jaheed Campbell, Roll Tide, linebacker Alabama, be a perfect fit.
Wow. Yeah. I'm thinking, okay, if you got Matthew Golden to go with everyone else that they've got here on the offense, another speedster with Mike Evans, man, that would be interesting. Or Jahdae Barron. You got Will Johnson still on the board, guys. We're starting to talk about guys that are up there that bring value, but that's very interesting. Jaheed Campbell. Your thoughts here, Brian, when we talk about the Buccaneers? Obviously,
but what pick is in?
Okay, man.
Pick is in. So they go interesting. Because I was going to touch on this. We talked about Mike Evans. We're talking about the receiver room. They got trust in him. Baker had 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns last year, and the Bucks go Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver, Ohio State.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that maybe this is the Mike Evans farewell tour, but like Vincent was saying earlier, though, like the fact that Mike Evans didn't really have anything left to prove. He had the numbers to be a Hall of Famer. He's got the Super Bowl. Tom Brady's leaving, and he's come back to say, I like Baker enough, and the production's still there. I mean, Baker had the same amount of TD passes as Lamar Jackson last year. Nobody gave him any mind. No one talked about him. He was second in touchdown passes, third in yards. Bucky Irving, like Vincent mentioned, was if you're a fantasy football guy, you were just waiting for Bucky Irving to take that job because you watch him in college and you watch his tape and the preseason, like this guy can play. And I mean, kudos to the Bucks, man. The rich get richer. There's only so many guys that can put a wide receiver on the field, but they got a ton of them.
Well, I'm writing his name down right now. 6'1", 205. So he's not as big as Mike, but you know what? He runs a 4.45, and that was at the combine. There are very few people that run that fast, that can catch, that won a national championship, and played on a great team. He ran fantastic routes. He would be getting open. Will Howard was able to hit him. I think Baker Mayfield is probably smiling from ear to ear right now. I think a very good Tampa Bay offense just got a little bit better.
Back to me. Oh, okay. Well,
absolutely.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say this: the Atlanta Falcons. No disrespect, Brian. You better take notice down there in Tampa.
DB in second round. Maybe get a defensive back in the second round, huh? Maybe that's what we're thinking. Maybe trade up for Will Johnson.
Because, Brian, I'm going to lay something to you right quick. Take notice of the Ohio State 49 career games, 205 receptions, 2,800 yards, 24 touchdowns. He loved that end zone.
National champion.
And they played the Falcons twice.
Yeah.
Back to you, Harp.
Yeah, real simple. There are other guys that are on the board that you're going to bypass, including there's a couple guys from Texas, obviously, Bolden is one of those guys that you look at his speed, but it doesn't matter. They made the pick. A 4.29 40 versus a 4.4. Okay, that's a step. I get it. But a guy that can go up and get the ball and is going to fight for it, and it can play in the cold weather. He's not going to have to worry about that much in Tampa, but interesting pick for them. And I think Baker's pretty happy right now. We're getting better. Go ahead, Vincent.
But can I say something? The gentleman is coming out of the Ohio State. Chris Carter, Garrett Wilson, Terry Glenn, David Boston. That's something he's got to keep going, that Ohio State pipeline of great receivers where everybody's saying they got the best receiving core in the history of the National Football League. Back to you, Hawk.
Yeah, there was quite a while where there were more Buckeyes than Trojans or Wolverines or Florida Gators that made it the NFL, and they're continuing that, obviously. But a good pick there for Tampa Bay. On the clock now is the Denver Broncos, right? Shall we go to the Broncos next, guys, or does anybody have any final thoughts here about the Bucs and how they just got a little bit stronger and 4 straight division titles, and they may be earning their way to a 5th?
I will say this. I'll comp him a little bit. I think he molds after Jackson Smith and Jigba very well. A guy who he probably got to learn from there at Ohio State. I think the way they're built, look at the numbers. I think it's a decent comp.
Yes, sir.
We agree. All right. Well, they're not the top guys on the board, but they're in the top 30, top 20-ish, right? With Gary Zabel and Emeka Egbuka. Shamar Stewart was the last one that was picked right around the same level that the team was picking. But now let's look at Denver Broncos, right? 10-7 are the Broncos. Real quick, they've got 7 picks, so 1 in each round. Running back, wide receiver, defensive tackle, center, and tight end are the main needs that they have. They've got $17.4 million in cap space. Mike McGlinchey is their number 1 paid player at $23.7 million. Guys, I think that the Denver Broncos played with house money last year, right?
Yeah.
They get in a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, and their defense was outstanding. And then their offense played just well enough to where, guess what? We're going to beat the Raiders a couple times. We're going to split with the Chargers. We're going to split with the Chiefs. We're going to win a couple of road games. The next thing you know, there in the playoffs. They didn't get to host, but they got to make it. So that's one of the things that I think about the Broncos that I'm pretty pleased with if I'm a Denver Bronco fan looking at the team right now. But Vincent, your thoughts here early on about the Broncos?
I want to say this. We need to give a hand clap to Bo Nix. I didn't see it coming. Played very well as a rookie quarterback. What more can you say? Hats off to him. Came under a lot of criticism when he was at Auburn. Went out there, got his career right out there in Oregon under Dan Lanning. He played at another level as a rookie quarterback. Now, I'm going to ask both of you gentlemen, who's the head coach for the Broncos, Sean Payton?
Sean Payton.
What's his history? When the Saints won the Super Bowl, who did he have running the football out of your area, Hop? Reggie Bush out of SC. Okay, when Reggie Bush left, who did he take? Another gentleman from up there where y'all live at, up there in Bruford, Alvin Kamara.
Norcross kid, yep.
Amari Hampton out of North Carolina. If it's not the pick, I'd be very, very surprised.
Yeah.
Sean Payton type player. Back to you, Hawk.
Boy, big body, right? Fast. Eric Dickerson type guy to me. Just he runs a little high. But you know what? He gains 6 yards every time he touches the ball. So I wouldn't be upset with that at all.
3-down player.
Yeah.
3-down player.
Yep, he can catch out of the backfield. Good hands. I think the only thing that most of the running backs get criticized for is, when they got to go against linebackers and pass pro. But you know what? If I have an assignment, I'm going to get open and get the ball down the field for first down. Brian, your thoughts here about the Broncos?
Well, I mean, we thought they were dead in the water after the whole Russell Wilson debacle, and they didn't have any picks, and they had no money, and this team looked like it was done. And they should have beat the Chiefs. They should have split with Kansas City last year. They're a field goal away from beating the Chiefs. I mean, the only downside this team really had is you talk about running back. That Javonte Williams was a guy who I thought he'd be their best player on offense, and he just fell off a cliff. I don't know what happened there. The run game was not productive, which Bo Nix didn't seem to mind too much. But you got a rookie quarterback who comes in and plays that well with no run game. I tip your cap to him. They who's their GM? It is George Patton, and then you have Sean Payton, who I hate to say it, he's done a great job. They've done a phenomenal job up there. They weathered the storm with everything that was happening. And with the Russell Wilson situation, they came smelling flowers. They got money now. They got picks now, which is something they didn't have last year. And they were already a playoff team. And, they're right up there with the Chargers, who are in a new situation, a new coach and whatever. And they're the only team they can really say was better than us is the Chiefs, which, again, that was the team in the AFC, the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you look at some of the guys that are available. We've talked about the Texas kids enough to where, well, let's do it. Matthew Golden's still available. That'd be a steal, right? If I'm picking 20th, I get the 10th best player in the whole draft. Or Johnny Barron. Shador has certainly, boy, can you imagine? And I know this isn't going to happen, but can you imagine Shador staying in Colorado and just having to move down the street to play for the Broncos? Josh Simmons is still available. Will Johnson, we talked about him. First time I'm going to mention him, guys. Nick Emanwari from South Carolina, a safety at 6'3", 220, runs a 4.38. At that size, Vincent, we did a quick video on him, and I'm reaching. I'm just saying that these are some guys that are available. James Pierce is available also. He's ranked number 20, defensive edge rusher from Tennessee. First and foremost, guys, the needs of the Broncos being matched to what I have to say, there's no commonality at all. But where do you think, where are you leaning towards with the Broncos? Obviously, Brian, forget it. Doesn't matter.
Well, the pick is it, as you said it. Johnny Barron from Texas was the pick, which is interesting because I don't know. There's a couple DBs that are still ranked a little higher than him, but they liked him a lot. They're going to pair him with Patrick Surtain out there. They got a really good secondary now, but maybe go no-fly zone again. Remember with their Super Bowl teams, they would say, hey, listen, with Keep Talib, no-fly zone, and tell Michael Crabtree to keep his chain on the sidelines. But yeah, wow, this is kind of surprising because even everyone I'm looking at say, hey, they're not taking a running back. So, hey, they like Barron a lot, so they took him here at 20.
5'11", 200 pounds. He ran a 4.39 40. 4.39 is pretty stinking fast, okay? 88.1 overall ranking. He was the number 11 guy on the board. Broncos are, anytime you just look at the numbers, when you're picking 20th and you get a number 11 guy, that's a good day at the office.
Fifth-year guy has played a lot of football, 57 games, 226 tackles in his career, 19 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 24 pass defenses, 8 interceptions. A guy that's really a very versatile football player. If you watch him in the college playoffs, I know against Ohio State, they had him playing up against the line. They had him playing against receivers in the slot. Very solid pick. Most of our very experienced football player, I believe he's 24 years old. So like I just mentioned a few seconds ago, he's played a lot of football. So he's a guy that's going to come to camp very mature and a very excellent pick. I'm still surprised. I thought Denver would still go with a running back, but you can't go wrong because that's a good value, as you say, Mr. Harper LeBel.
Yep, you like the value there. Go ahead, Brian.
So he wasn't there for his whole tenure, but Vincent, what conference is he from? Where is he from?
The SEC, Mr.
There
Brian
you go.
LeBel.
Another SEC. Hey, listen, I think realistically, if you're an NFL GM or executive and you have a chance to draft an SEC defensive player in the first round, I think you have a safe bet of them at least being good enough to where people say, okay, that's not a bust. I see the vision. I see why you did it. But he played really well at Texas. If you watch his highlights, he's making plays against Alabama. He's picking off Jalen Milroe, who we might call his name here tomorrow. And, Steve Sarkisian, but I'm sure he loves the guy. Got nothing but praises for. But I think he's really good. It's surprising to see him be the DB taken here. And it's even more surprising because there's some pretty good running backs on the board still. But I think it's a good pick. I like the pairing. I think, man, especially up at the altitude, it's going to be hard to throw the football against the Denver Broncos here over the next couple of years.
They're a good team, and they get after the quarterback, and they can stop the run defensively. I was thinking offense too. Give Bo Nix a little cushion, if you will. But maybe there's going to be somebody in the second round. All right, now let's go. If you guys don't mind, can we go to the Steelers? Let's do so.
Yes, sir.
Here's what I say before I say anything about the Steelers. Are we going to see Aaron Rodgers in a Steeler uniform? He's been there. He's worked out, or at least he's shown that he's ready to work out. Vincent, first and foremost, because if Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart are available, why are we going to sign Aaron Rodgers? I don't understand how that works. If they don't sign him, then one of those two that I mentioned will be in a Steeler uniform in the next 4 or 5 minutes.
Well, right now, I'm going to tell you this, Mr. Harper LeBel and Brian LeBel. I'm living in the moment.
Man,
I don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. I know we need a quarterback.
Well,
it's
look,
either Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart. Then we move on from there and go to the next moment and deal with Aaron Rodgers later.
All right. Well,
go ahead.
On, Vincent. Hold on. It doesn't matter what you say, Brian. We're going to interrupt real quick. Go ahead.
So the Steelers apparently did not like the quarterback idea from Vincent, and they're taking Derek Harmon, defensive tackle from Oregon, at 21.
Well, that answers the questions right there, gentlemen. Obviously, they're going to wait on Aaron Rodgers, and they're going to probably be signing with him I guess, in the next few days. That's what it tells me. I don't know. But that's what I'm seeing. I'll be 65 in July. I think I don't fall far from a tree. It looked like Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Steeler just on his time. Back to you, Hawk.
Well, Brian, that's an interesting scenario that Mason Rudolph was re-signed. So they have a quarterback on the roster, but that's it. And I'm beginning to have some issues with the past 4 or 5 quarterbacks that all have some names. They may not be top names, but when you look at Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator, do I have a problem in Pittsburgh?
I think it might be more that the Steelers seem to just throw together a roster every year since Roethlisberger retired. And I think they're challenging Mike Tomlin's record of consecutive winning seasons personally. I think they're trying to see how jumbled it is. Because, Aaron Rodgers could sign whatever, right? Shedeur Sanders on the board, Jackson Dart's on the board. I think this is a very good defensive line room now, if you look at who they got. But I will give the Steelers credit. They've overachieved, right? With the talent they've had, especially at the quarterback position. They've played musical quarterbacks for the last couple of years, and they've been able to squeak out some wins, especially in the division, play the Ravens kind of close, the Bengals, the Browns. But, I think they felt with Kenny Pickett, I think he was either the second or third quarterback rated in that class. Maybe they don't want to go in that direction. maybe there's some behind the scenes stuff where Aaron Rodgers has already kind of verbally agreed. He just doesn't know when he wants to report yet. But yeah, the defensive tackle here, I mean, it's a safer pick, but they filled out the wide receiver room in the offseason. So it's looking kind of like Aaron Rodgers might be a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Well, Derek Harmon is the selection. 6'5", 310-pounder, runs a sub-5, a 4'9", 540, out of Oregon. You don't think about Oregon defensive linemen, but the Falcons end up getting one last year, and someone's got to play defense when you're winning all those games there for the Ducks. Getting to the Rose Bowl, they were met by an Ohio State team that was just out to demolish them, and they were on the wrong end of that. But Derek Harmon obviously has made some impressions and certainly has done so here in Pittsburgh. On a team that has a very good defense, I think they maintain that. With the aging of Cameron Haywood, I don't think he's going to leave just yet. He may have another year or two with him, but his replacement was just picked up about 2 minutes ago.
Okay, go ahead. Yes, sir.
I might add, the Steelers also do not have a second-round pick, so unless they trade up, there's no Jackson Dart or Shedeur Sanders in the second round either.
Interesting. Well, that makes all right. We didn't do much on Pittsburgh. They were 10-7 last year. They've got $32.2 million. They're 10th in the league in terms of cap space. I think they'll leave maybe 100,000 left for Aaron Rodgers. You think? So don't be surprised if Aaron Rodgers signs for $30+ million. That's what I would anticipate. T.J. Watt is their highest paid player, $30 million for him. So I think 30.5 is what Aaron's going to probably expect. They're just they'll cut somebody or do whatever to make that. They did sign Mason Rudolph. They signed 3 wide receivers, including DK Metcalf. That to me is a big step in the right direction from an offensive standpoint. Scotty Miller re-signed with them. There's a couple others, but your thoughts here about the Steelers before we move on to the Chargers. Vincent, go ahead.
Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is going to be the guy. We can say that. I think we can all agree on that. He gets with Pittsburgh, you're going to have a lot of offensive weapons. I don't think you're going to sign DK Metcalf and then not go in the season without a quarterback. And I think it's a perfect scenario because remember this, the Steelers has got some good young offensive talent. Broderick Jones, the young man for the Lithonia left tackle, is now rounded into one of the best in the league. Donnell Washington out of the University of Georgia, now 6'6". My man, Kevin Austin, 901, Memphis, Tennessee. George Pickens. They're saying Kenneth Gainwell coming over from Philadelphia. He got a better offensive team than he had with the Jets. And Aaron Rodgers, I guess I'm assuming why he holding everybody hostage. He want to prove to y'all, I'm still the man from Chico, California. Remember that. Back to you, Hart.
Well, they did lose Najee Harris, so that's one thing that they will probably need someone. And if Marion Hampton is available in the third round, which he won't be, but there'll be some others available. You're going to look for a different running back, maybe Cam Scatabo or something like that would take place. But final thoughts here on Pittsburgh, Brian, before we move on to the Chargers.
Well, it's interesting you said Najee Harris, who's now with the team who was on the clock in the Chargers. Yeah. But they got a good offense, and I think they did get Skylar Thompson as well, but I don't know who your quarterback going forward would be. They only have 2 guys in the room anyway, so you'd have to add somebody regardless, probably later round. Maybe they're thinking someone will be there round 3. I don't know if it's – you have to think it's Aaron Rodgers at this point, just because if not, they'd be trying to do something to fill that at least get a guy in here who, hey, you may not start immediately like a Quinn Ewers, but you're going to learn the scheme. We're going to bring you in. We wouldn't know that till day 2 or 3, but maybe it's just foreboding. Maybe they're alluding to, exactly what it is with Aaron Rodgers as a Pittsburgh Steeler, just on his time.
Yeah, I think there has to be some sort of a handshake deal, though, because you can't leave a team like that, like the Steelers. And even Cam Hayward just a couple of months ago was saying, come on, let's get this thing over with. Just sign with the club so we know. That's an interesting scenario, and Pittsburgh will have to deal with it. But I hope they don't get screwed in the end by that. All right, LA Chargers. Let's look at the 11-6 Chargers. What a turnaround they had. The previous year, they were picking 5th overall. Their needs are wide receiver, tight end, defensive tackle, guard, and running back. They've got 10 total picks. I can't see how they would overshadow Burden from Texas. I think that he'll be gone within the next 5 minutes. They have $30.6 million under the cap. They've got 12. They rank 12th. Their next pick is number 23 overall in the second round. Vincent, your thought here first about the LA Chargers.
What did Jim Harbaugh win his national championship at? Michigan, right?
Yes, sir.
What did he play quarterback at? Michigan, right?
He did, and then played quarterback with Chicago and the Bears also.
Okay. Who was the starting corner on the national championship season 2 years ago under him?
It would be Will Johnson.
That's going to be the pick, in my opinion. You know, Mr. Harbaugh liked to draft players that he coached. Last year, I can't think of the gentleman right now, the linebacker that played real well for him. He took in the third round. Kid name, he's out of Nashville also. If you can pull it up for me, Brian, he was a Michigan guy. So at the end of the day, I think Mr. Harbaugh is going to take your gentleman off the board, Harper. Will Johnson is the pick here.
I'm just going to guess Matthew Golden, just because they could use that speed, and they've had some issues with their wide receivers. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I would not be surprised. Do we have a pick yet, Brian?
There's no pick yet, but to answer Vincent's question, that'd be
Junior
Colson, linebacker from Michigan.
Yeah, he played real well for the Chargers last year. Started, and Harbaugh loves former players.
He does.
Yeah, he's pretty loyal. All right, your pick. Just where do the Chargers stand? And they're number 22 right now. They're close. They certainly had a quick turnaround, Brian, from where they were just a year before. Jesse Minter is a fantastic defensive coordinator. I think you get a little help offensively. That's where I'm leaning for them. What are your thoughts here about the Chargers?
I mean, Will Johnson makes sense. It's just we're at that weird time in the draft where there's a lot of guys that are probably in the like 25 to 40 ranking where you might think, oh, well, I don't know if he's a first round guy or a second round guy or whatever it is. And you have teams, playoff caliber teams that are going to draft more for need, right? Because like, hey, we made the playoffs. This was our discrepancy. So I don't really care if he's the 36th ranked guy. We need a tackle or we need a linebacker. We need a safety. Will Johnson might be the best player left on the board. I don't know if Mel Kiper agrees with me, but the Chargers took their full time to make the pick, so obviously they were maybe, mulling over their options, maybe like the Falcons. Maybe it's we can't believe this guy fell to us. But, I think Harbaugh does prioritize defense. I think if you asked him about Will Johnson, he'd probably say it was his favorite player in the draft coming in. Maybe Colson Levelin a little bit too, but I don't know. He's just going to name all the Michigan guys. But like Vincent said, I wouldn't be surprised if they take him here. Another thing, too, I don't think Shedeur Sanders is the pick here, but he's still on the board at 22.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw another quick scenario out here. Harbaugh likes to run the football a lot, right?
He does.
When Michigan won that national championship, he had Blake Corn and Donovan Edwards, 1-2 punch.
Yep.
Omari Hampton might be a pick here too, since Harper's saying offense. I wouldn't be surprised he'd take Omari Hampton, the running back.
Well, the needs for them, as we mentioned, wide receiver, tight end, defensive tackle, guard. So you've got a wide receiver who's available at number 10. There are some running backs that you could look at, and Omari is one of those guys. So very interesting pick. And they signed Najee Harris from the Steelers. They re-signed Khalil Mack. They picked up a couple of edge rushers as well. Justin Herbert is the highest paid player. He's 27 years old, and he's making $37.3 million. So we'll await with bated breath here for what the Chargers are going to do. And Brian, obviously, if you have any updates, you will fill us in. But they may be waiting for Kansas. Gosh, I can't see them working with Kansas City, but maybe Philadelphia or somebody else that might want to move up and steal Will Johnson or something like that. They'll wait till the clock ticks down to about 30 seconds before they finalize that pick. But a lot of different options that they have there in LA. But again,
pick is in. The pick is in. And North Carolina running back Omari Hampton at 22. So there you go. We got a couple of them right tonight, huh? That's a good one. I like the pick. I think it's a great pick.
Harbaugh likes to run the football, and he likes that 1-2 running back situation. He already said when he took the job last year, he said, hey, I'm not going to have Justin Herbert throwing the football all over the field. We're going to play hard-nosed Michigan football. And one thing about Mr. Harbaugh, he stays to his beliefs. He's not going to change. Back to you, Harper.
Yeah, there are certain things about football that haven't changed over the last 100 years or so, and you got to be
That's
able to
true.
run it
That's true.
and control the clock. So here's Hampton's stats. He's 6 feet 220. He ran a 4.46 40. I don't know if you have any numbers in terms of touchdowns and yards per catch, but um, he's an immediate impact player. He's a downhill runner for a guy his size. I think he bounces off a lot of linebackers and defensive tackles and safeties, especially. So bigger body, and I think the Chargers would absolutely relish something like that. They take all 9.5 minutes that they could for somebody else to try to talk them out of it, but it wasn't done. They good pick for them. I believe they've just got a little bit better themselves.
Well, in North Carolina, in his career, he had over 3,500 yards. He averaged almost 5 yards a carry, 36 touchdowns. Very productive. And think about this. He got lost in the shuffle because everybody was talking about Drake May over the last few seasons. Then North Carolina defense wasn't all that good, and he still was able to produce. And that's why Mac Brown got fired, because Carolina's defense was almost giving up a crazy number per game. But nobody really talked about how good he was. And what he caught my eyes when he played Georgia Tech a couple of seasons ago when he was a junior, and what he put on Georgia Tech that night.
Yeah.
Very, very good football player, man. And like I said, running the football and controlling the clock, that's what the man is going to do from the University of Michigan. It's that simple. Back to you, Mark.
Ashton Gente was number 1 ranked at Boise State. He goes 6th overall to the Raiders. Omarion Hampton now at 22 goes to the Chargers. Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, Travion Henderson out of Ohio State, and then Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee are the top 5 ranked running backs. So, Brian, obviously they didn't want to wait for someone in the 2nd or 3rd round. They wanted to go after their guy right now. They do have 10 picks, so I think they did entertain the possibility of going back. But if the suitor wasn't right, or if you're taking a call from Kansas City, you're just going to hang up. I'm not going to help them in any way, shape, or form. So the pick is in LA Chargers with Omarion Hampton.
Yes, sir.
Very consistent. So if you look at his numbers in 2023, he averaged 5.9 yards a carry and 15 touchdowns. In 2024, again, 5.9 yards a carry and 15 touchdowns. That's do it back-to-back years. He was tremendous. A very good running back. I think there's kind of an argument who the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th running backs were coming out behind, obviously, Ginty. But I like Omarion Hampton a lot. I think it's a good pick. I think Vincent hit the nail on the head. Harbaugh wants to run the ball, and he's like, hey, I'm going to get my guy. Regardless what happens here at 22, and I think he did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's move on now. The host city is the Green Bay Packers, picking 23rd. So is the volume a little bit louder right now, waiting for what Green Bay is going to be doing, Brian? Can you tell?
They had to stop letting people in. They put out an official announcement. We're at capacity. No more people. You can't come in anymore. We can't fit any more people. So
go home.
Yeah.
Go. Especially if you're in Detroit or Minnesota, we don't want you here anyways.
Yep.
Well, Green Bay, again, just one of those teams that seems to get it right. 11-6 last year. They have 8 picks overall. Jordan Love is their highest paid player at $29.6 million. They have $32.09 million. That ranks number 11 in the NFL in terms of cap space. Their top needs are cornerback, tackle, wide receiver, edge rusher, and defensive tackle. And I'm thinking in every one of those, they can pick a player that is higher rated than number 23. And if they go cornerback right now, would Will be their guy, Vincent? I'm thinking he doesn't have to move very far to go from Michigan to Wisconsin. But goodness gracious, the Packers, is it in? Do we got a pick for him already?
No, nothing in yet.
Vincent.
Well, my thinking is Jair Alexander's been acting a fool with the organization for the last couple of seasons. 1 minute he's healthy, another minute he's in a contract dispute, another minute we don't know what he's going to do. And I don't think the Packers are going to re-sign him when the draft is over with. I know they was real high on Mr. Barron. So to Mike Ken and the Michigan alum, I think the Green Bay Packers are going to take Will Johnson. Dun, 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 dun. Back to you, Harp.
All right. Well, first of all, the needs, and here's an organization that they just ho-hum. They get through another playoff year. Um, do they need help on the offensive line with Jordan Love? Would Josh Simmons be a good fit there for him, Brian, especially in his position of being the best available? But that knee, we mentioned that a little bit earlier, is something that I'm thinking that maybe they don't want to waste a first-round pick on a guy that only has half a leg.
Well, I know Matthew Golden is available, but I know the Packers are allergic to taking quarterbacks in round one. You can ask Aaron Rodgers about that. But I mean, they could go anywhere. Like you said, Jair Alexander they do need DB help. I don't think he's made it quite clear. I don't think he wants to be in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Maybe there's not enough to do. Like as Sean GT said, there's just, hey man, it's boring here in Green Bay. But 11-6 last year, kind of ho hum, right? Like they were 11-6. The Lions were the talk of the division. They were probably they were the third best team in the division. Remember, the Vikings didn't lose a game for 2 months there, almost it seemed.
Yeah. Middle of the season, you had 3 teams in the NFC North that all had double-digit wins, and it was pretty interesting how competitive it was.
Flew under the radar, even though they won 11 games, which a lot of teams out there, man, we'd love to win 11 games, but you're still third in your division. I don't know. I mean, they go a lot of different directions. LaFleur is a big McVay guy, right? They're cut from the same cloth, so maybe they go golden here. Maybe they break the streak and get a receiver. But Will Johnson, I think, is the best player on the board as of right now. So interestingly, like Vincent said, like what was it? Logan said earlier, as far as keep your Michigan stuff, maybe away from here. But actually, the pick is in. And the drought is over. They took Matthew Golden, so they did take a wide receiver.
Oh wow!
So that's that. The streak is broken. I don't know how many years it's been, but they get their guy at 23, Matthew Golden.
Matthew Golden, out of the University of Texas. This reminds me a little bit of the Falcons a few years ago. Ended up getting the Calvin Ridley was a great pick. I think he was available. Falcons in almost the same spot, picking in the 20s, getting the 12th or 13th best player on the board. And even though we had Julio and really didn't have that need, he's the best guy on the board. Stop it. Why not take him and see how that works out for you? Now, obviously, he's a Jacksonville Jaguar now and went through Tennessee. I'm sorry, he's with Tennessee now. But long story short is, great pick here for the Packers. Vincent, your thoughts here first and foremost about Golden going to Green Bay.
Speed. Matt LaFleur, as y'all just said, came out of the Sean McVay tree. Jalen Reed is a pretty good player there. Christian Watson has been banged up for him a lot and been injured, so I can understand why they took the pick. And it took a very good value because the guy can certainly fly. And on that grass up there in Green Bay, he's going to be serious. And think about this. The division is going to get real tough. Detroit is not going nowhere. Minnesota is not going nowhere. And if Chicago can pull some little strings with Ben Johnson, that will be the toughest division in the National Football League next season. Back to you, Harper.
Well, he was the fastest wide receiver in the 40 and in the 10-yard shuttle. He's not the biggest guy out there at 5'11". He's not, he's not a giant receiver, but he goes out and gets after the ball. He certainly did so for Texas, and just a burner right now. So if he can handle the cold weather, you know what I mean? I'd let him warm up in the sauna before any of those snow games, and just let him run a couple of deep routes early on often while the cornerbacks on the opposing team are still kind of, breathing heavy and haven't loosened up yet. But the speed is amazing, and how he fell from number 10 or 11 to 23, that fall has stopped. And Matthew Golden, I think, has a big smile on his face. Brian, first and foremost, your thoughts about the guy from Texas, a 5'11", 200-pounder.
Well, if you told me last season, because they had Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, and even Dontavian Wicks, they had a really good receiver room coming into the season. And they really underperformed. I know Watson was banged up, but they didn't have – Tucker Kraft kind of nullified a very underperforming receiver room. Jordan Love still had a decent year, but there was not a ton of production. Nobody in that receiver room had over 6 touchdowns, I believe, was the cap. Nobody was over 775 yards. It was not exactly consistency. So I think maybe if they're going to go wide receiver by committee, which they might have to if they don't have a clear-cut number one, Golden's your guy, or maybe you think he's a take the top off the defense, so now my intermediate guys can feast a little bit more. But it's interesting. They have a really good receiver room, or maybe a really bad receiver room. I don't know. But if you had told me week 1 last year that their first round pick is going to be a wide receiver, I would have maybe looked at you a little bit puzzled, but it makes sense.
Well, 2 years ago, they go to Dallas and they surprise everybody by winning that game there, a playoff game that Dallas was certainly favored to win. They struggle against the Niners the following week. But the problems that you're mentioning in the receiving room, is that Jordan Love? Is that an offensive line issue? Is a little bit of all of the above?
Maybe a little bit of both, because you have those sophomore slumps, and you have guys that maybe you hit your hiccup and teams adjust to you and you have to adjust back, right? That's just kind of how the game is. Teams are going to scheme for certain things. You have to watch the film and say, okay, if they're going to take this away, we have to play a little bit better. But they had some drop issues, with some of the receivers. Watson being banged up was big because he was Jordan Love's go-to guy. You loved him a lot. If you're a fantasy guy, you're really disappointed in Watson last year because of the injuries. But Tucker Kraft now he's very quietly. I know we don't talk about him a lot because, you got Brock Bowers and, Kyle Pitts we talk about here in Atlanta for different reasons. But then you had Travis Kelce. He was tremendous for them last year. And I think, Jordan Love right now is probably sitting grinning ear to ear. If Watson stays healthy, they got a ton of weapons. They got to figure it out. Stay healthy, get him the ball. Maybe Love did have a little dip, but I think if there's one guy that's not named Sean McVay I'd want to have correct the ship, it's Matt LaFleur, and that's who they have.
Yeah. Well, Packers, from a receiving concept, you mentioned their room is full. They're loaded right there, and they got a lot of excellent talent. Even though they didn't go on the defensive side, and cornerback was one of the needs, tackle being another, they went with the best guy that was on the board. So I'm always for a team that if you're picking 23rd and you get the 10th best player, that's a value pick, and it makes perfect sense. All right, Minnesota Vikings are next on the board. Number 24 overall, the 14-3 Minnesota Vikings end up losing their first playoff game at Detroit. That was pretty interesting how that worked out. Remember when they played the last week or two of the season, when the two head coaches get together, you could hear Dan Campbell go, "Yeah, I'll see you in a week or two." Right? He kind of could tell. Minnesota was 14-3, cornerback, guard, defensive tackle, safety, and wide receiver in no specific order. Those are the needs that they have. Here's where Minnesota is really, I don't know how this happens, but they've only got 4 picks this year. So they've got to nail it. And they had a quarterback issue where they bring in Sam Darnold, but he's no longer there. Would you even for a moment think of making a pick here at quarterback, somebody to back up JJ? I don't know, but $18.16 million. They rank 22nd in the league in terms of their cap space. They don't pick again until the 33rd pick in the 3rd round, 33rd overall. So Minnesota Vikings on the clock. Vincent, I know you're back. We were talking about the Vikings here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Brian LeFleur is a defensive-minded coach, one of the best coordinators in the game. Gentleman that you talked about earlier in the show, Nicky E. out of South Carolina. Fits the scheme. Harrison Smith is getting old, 35 years old. To me, a perfect fit for the Minnesota Vikings because the Vikings are going to go with J.J. McCartney. They took him last year as a quarterback. Looked like they made a commitment to him. So Flores likes defense. And most of all, I got to give credit to Kevin O'Connell. He's done a phenomenal job as a head coach with the Vikings. Back to you, Hawk.
Yeah. Brian, Aaron Jones, they re-signed him to a 2-year, $20 million deal. 13 million of that is guaranteed. I think he was a difference maker with Green Bay. Then he signs with Minnesota. I still think he's a difference maker. Jordan Mason is also a running back that they have. Will Fries, Ryan Kelly are some linemen that they re-signed. Jonathan Allen is defensive tackle. Javon Hargrave. I think the linebackers that they had, they lose a couple to free agency, but Harrison Smith is in the back there. Theo Jackson, they re-signed them. Jeff Okudah, who used to be with Atlanta, and he's been basically on a 1-year deal with everybody that he's been with ever since. The different needs and availabilities. What are you thinking right now? Do they go value or do they go with, look, this is our number one need. We got to take care of that.
So I could tell you what I think, or I could tell you what they did, because the pick is officially in for them.
Never mind. It
So,
doesn't matter.
so they're Donovan Jackson, tackle Ohio State. That's who they end up taking. I think if you watch the playoff game where Sam Darnold, I mean, it was reminiscent of what he was doing with the Jets, where he's just getting blitzed so much and pressured so much. The famous "I'm seeing ghosts" out there, but he had no time at all. They could just, the Rams just pinned their ears back and got after him. So it makes sense, because you look at your quarterback of the future, who was the quarterback of last year, but obviously an injury. You say, hey, maybe we don't want any more of those. We don't want a repeat performance of what we saw in the playoffs. So they go and get some offensive line help, which makes sense.
Okay. Well, Donovan Jackson.
A little lower down on the list, though. There's a couple of guys that I would look at and think might go ahead of him at the same position, but okay.
But think about this, gentlemen. He was the guy that came in, had to go from guard to play left tackle when Josh Simmons got hurt last season with Ohio State and did an A+ job.
Surprised me. He's not in the top 2 or 3 leftovers, and I'm a little bit surprised with this. Josh Simmons, obviously, for him to be overlooked the way that he has and slipping down as much. Now, there were some folks that thought that he'd be a late first rounder because of the injury, but him being available and overpicking going with Donovan, that's a surprise to me. It is.
Well, a lot of people are looking at his knee, though, Hawk.
I know that. Yeah.
They said it was a very serious knee injury. They said the knee is checking out, though, from all the medicals done by several teams. But at the end of the day, you know how this draft situation works out. Teams want to be very careful when you're taking the offensive lineman, because they're expecting teams taking these linemen early, they're expecting them to be at least a 7 to 8 year player, in my opinion.
Well, Brian, tell me a little bit about Donovan Jackson that I don't know, because I quite honestly didn't think he'd be going in the first round.
I mean, he's a good player. I mean, he showed what he could do. Ohio State, you ask anybody that, last year he could fit any role, right? If you need him to play guard, you need to play tackle, he could fill in. It's always good to have an offensive lineman, 1 or 2 of those guys on a roster where someone's banged up, you trust him enough and say, hey, go play left tackle, go play guard. I remember a few years ago, the Cowboys had an issue at left tackle against the Falcons, and I want to say it was Adrian Claymore game. He had like 6 sacks. So you have a guy who can't fill in, and it ruins your whole game plan. So having him, I think, listen, they wanted size. He's got size. He's got strength. He's got the pedigree, right? He played at the Ohio State University, so they liked him a lot. They said, we're going to bring him in. We don't really care. Like we said earlier, some of these guys between ranks like 25 and 40, if they like this guy better, they're going to go get him now. It's not going to be all, set in stone with a lot of these mock drafts. But I don't hate the pick. I think it's pretty good. I think it's a wait and see, though, right? We're not going to know until we see his production on the field.
Well, interesting you say that. So I'm pulling up some information on him. He's 6'4", he's 320. He's a huge guy, right? Big body guy. He runs a 5'2", 40. So he's got some wheels for a guy that big. I'm going to read it verbatim. Jackson shows the making of a capable NFL offensive lineman who could develop into a starter with proper coaching. That's the first sentence. Why are you doing that with a first rounder? I'm boggled with that, and I'm not mad. I'm not upset. It's just I'm going to question it. You get a first rounder, or the possibility of that, or you trade back into a guy that you don't have any picks anyway. So trade back and get a guy that you need to develop, but not with my first rounder. I got to get a guy, especially if I only got 4 picks. I got to nail this. So go right ahead. Yes,
the bomb has exploded. Back to Brian. The bomb has exploded for the evening.
Oh, here we go.
The Giants traded back to 20. They're back at picking at 25. They traded from the Texans, and they traded the number 34 pick, a 2025 third-round pick, and a future 6th-round pick in exchange for the 25th pick. And with their selection, they are taking quarterback Jackson Dart from Ole Miss off the board before Shedeur Sanders at 25. Interesting.
Wow.
So I know we were having fun talking about Donovan Jackson, but Shedeur Sanders is still on the board. He's not the second quarterback taken, and Jackson Dart is the pick quarterback of the future for the Giants.
So do the Giants get the A+ rating that Kuiper and Field and everybody else is going to be given for them to work their way with that extra pick to go back into the first round and make a second pick?
I give them an A+.
Is that right?
I think it was a smart move on him. I think it's a good move. You got Mr. Dotter's going to New York. He doesn't have to play real right then. He's got 2 veterans ahead of him, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, that's been in the league for a while.
Yeah.
And the Giants need a quarterback. And as you always say, for value, they don't have to spend a numerous amount of money picking a player that high.
Very
And
interesting.
you got a guy who's going to be able to sit and learn. No pressure at all.
So remind me again, Brian. I know you just said it, but I was writing down Jackson Dart. Houston moved back, so they're out of the first round. They get
Yes.
the Giants pick, which is number 3 or number 2 in the second round.
34, correct.
Right, and then they get another pick. Is that right? Houston will get 2 picks for this trade.
They'll get their third round pick as well, and then a future 6th round pick. So maybe next year, 2 years from now, probably
So
next year.
So a future 6. That's just icing on the cake.
Yep.
I think that from the movie Draft Day, where Kevin Costner said, and throw in the punt returner.
There you go.
Throw in that future 6th rounder. So Houston is out. Now, Houston had needs regarding offensive line, defensive line. They wanted a tight end. They were looking to running back. And evidently they're seeing the value there by moving back. But New York slipping up and getting Jackson Dart. That I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting a couple of trades, but not for New York to do this to get back into the first round. Very interesting. So the LA Rams, who I don't think need a quarterback, Baltimore, who I don't think need a quarterback. So for them to trade back in and trade for a quarterback when the next couple of picks, unless they feel that someone else is going to make a move and try to slip in front of them. Obviously, there was some of that strategy. Vincent, your thoughts here on this trade?
I'm not surprised that the Giants move back to trade because they're going to need a quarterback. And obviously, we always thinking they're going to take a quarterback in the second round.
Yeah.
Just kind of really surprised that Shedeur Sanders is still on the board. I thought he'd be the second quarterback pick. I don't want to get into all that because he's been the one guy everybody's been talking about. But when you look at the Giants, I think they made probably the best move because the Giants are going to have a really good defense this year that's going to be very competitive. And offensively, you're bringing in Russell Wilson. As I mentioned before, he's going to be the starter. Jackson Dart can come in, learn, watch. Brian LeBel is, I think, still a pretty good head coach. And I think it's going to work out for the Giants. Back to you, Hawk.
Well, Tennessee needs a quarterback. Cleveland needs a quarterback. The Giants don't need a quarterback any longer in terms of the first 5 or 6 picks overall. There's a few others that have that as a need, but maybe not the most important one. So, Brian, your perspective here, give me your 2 cents regarding the trade itself and for Houston to fall back with as many needs as they have, trying to get to that next level in terms of their playoff run.
It's interesting because Houston was rumored to be one of the teams that's looking to either move up or move back before the draft. They were talking about that, maybe making a splash, maybe nothing really matriculated. But you have to think, because if you look at the next teams on the board, it's the Rams, the Ravens, the Lions, the Commanders, and the Bills. And I would say those are maybe the 4 teams right now, or 3 teams. It's for the Lions, the Commanders, and the Bills, who are very, very, very happy with their quarterback rooms. Maybe rumor mill swirled. The Rams are saying, hey, maybe we don't need a quarterback this year, but we get the Matthew Stafford's replacement. Maybe they really like Jackson Dart, and the Giants like Jackson Dart. So obviously they're not going to trade with us, so we have to move up. But maybe they trade. I think that's the only thing that really makes sense, right? Because if not, maybe you trade with the Ravens or whoever else, because I'm sure these teams are saying, hey, we got a good crop of players. Maybe we don't have our guy here at 27 or 28. We can drop back a couple slots, so we'll happily do so. But very, very interesting. Let's see. Hold on. So the Falcons just traded too. The Falcons just traded for the Rams pick. So now, so the Falcons are back on the board. I don't know who they'd be taking here, but Atlanta's back on the board now. So we got back-to-back trades. Wow. So maybe, I guess Jackson Dart was the pick for the Rams because now they're trading back, which is very interesting. So maybe someone in the Rams war room is about to get fired because they leaked early that they were going to try to get Jackson Dart. But very interestingly, I wonder. I don't.
Well, that's Stetson Bennett. Did Stetson get his drinking problem taken care of there in Los Angeles? Because he was supposed to be the guy.
I don't know. So the Falcons do need
Stetson Bennett is past tense, man.
So hold on. So maybe the Falcons saw the. Who did the Falcons trade though? We have what, 4 or 5 picks? We don't have a lot to trade. Will Johnson here? Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe you're thinking Will Johnson because you see the Bucks are like, hey, They got another guy. They got Jalen McMillan. They got Godwin. They got Evans. No, we got to go get our guy right now. That's all I can think.
Let's
But
get Will and shut it down the rest of the draft.
That's not happening.
All right, Tennessee has 8 picks overall, 7 remaining. Cleveland has 10, so they had room to move for a quarterback. But obviously, the Giants, with their 8 picks, decided the time was right, and we're going to go take. We're going to take Jackson and
Harper, Brian. Hot news.
So I have the terms of the Falcons deal. So the Falcons are trading a future first to the Rams. They're also trading 46, number 242, and their 2026 first for number 26 and number 101.
Wow.
So maybe, man, Will Johnson here makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
I don't know who else would be on the board that you would really look at. But wow, interesting. Because the Falcons, so to trade, I wonder if, you have all the pressure on Terry Fontenot right now, right? Like, hey, we got to win right now. Raheem Morris and Terry are probably sitting here thinking, hey, listen, Arthur Smith got fired for a couple of mediocre 7 to 8 to 9 win seasons, and we got to go win now. But very interesting.
Will Johnson.
Oh, no. James Pierce Jr. is the pick for the Falcons.
They want to get pressure on the quarterback.
Wow. So they double down on guys that can get after wow. Maybe they've had enough of being last in the league in sacks.
Yes, sir.
Wow. So Falcons get James Pierce Jr.
Well,
they thought he was worth a first-round pick next year for him, so that's what they went out and they got their guy.
Oh my gosh.
One thing I noticed is that one thing for sure, the Falcons are going to be a fast defense next year.
Yes.
That's for sure. Jalen Walker and James Pearson, they play in the best conference, not the Big Ten.
Well, they had a coach that said we're going to be fast and physical, and you know how I feel about that. That means we're small. And so we're going with another guy that's not even 245 pounds. And remind me again. I'm listening, I'm writing things down, and I'm paying attention, and I'm not paying attention. So what did the Falcons give up? They had a second rounder this year. I'm sure that's gone.
Yes. So they trade their second rounder this year, their first rounder next year.
Goodness gracious.
And number 242. So that's what, like round 5?
Okay. This year.
Yes. So 2 picks from this year, 1 first-round pick from next year.
Okay. Did they get anything in return for that?
They got pick number 26, who is James Pierce, and then they got pick 101 from the Rams.
Okay. Interesting.
So the Rams get a first-round pick and pick number 101 to basically move back,
10
20 spots.
20s, yeah.
That makes me think, though, that they were going to take Jackson Dart because, that maybe they really like Dart, and they said, maybe. But which is interesting because you think maybe they like Shador as well, but they just said no. They didn't want Shador.
Yeah. All right. So the Rams are not on the clock. They had a trade. The Rams trade that to the Falcons. And my assumption now with these 2 trades, everything is the dust is settling and Baltimore is on the clock.
Baltimore, the Ravens are now officially on the clock after the cloud of dust has settled. Yes.
Okay. So the Rams are good to go. Remember a couple years ago when they brought in Matthew Stafford, they were trading picks and players and everything, their future, so to speak. Now they're building for their future. That's pretty interesting that they would have a number 1 pick for next year. They'll have at least 2, at least where we are right now. All right. So Baltimore, 12-5. Their needs are defensive tackle, cornerback, guard, edge, wide receiver. Their top off-season signings and free agents are Cooper Rush from Dallas. They picked up him. DeAndre Hopkins, they have him as well. $12.36 million under the cap. That's 27th. That's down near the bottom. Their highest paid player is Lamar Jackson, the 28-year-old who is making $43.5 million. Vincent, Baltimore on the clock. I don't think they have many needs, but defensive tackle being one of them. Your perspective, please.
I can see him maybe adding another receiver. Not really strong on DeAndre Hopkins. He's long in the tooth. Zay Flowers is a small guy. I can see Luther Burden III. I keep talking him up in existence, can go there. And then I got Will Johnson playing opposite of Nate Wiggins. Marlon Humphrey is getting old, and they want to move him to safety. Back to you, Hart.
Okay. Very successful. They ran the ball well. Your one completion at the goal line from winning your playoff game, Brian. What does Baltimore need to do and pick up here? Or are they possibly in a position where, you know what, we can trade back and get a first rounder for next year as well?
Every single year, the last 3 or 4 years, we look at it, we say, maybe receiver, but the Ravens seem to be fine. They have a ton of depth at every position. And then the team I watch beat up on the Dolphins in week 9 isn't the team that I watch host the Buffalo Bills in the second round of the playoffs. It's just, I think a lot of it's just consistently, because I'm like sitting here saying, hey, Lamar Jackson can't stay out of the end zone for 17 weeks. And then we get to the playoffs and I'm sitting here thinking, hey, he hasn't found it once yet. And we're halfway through the third quarter. Derrick Henry had 100 rush yards in the first 4 minutes against the Steelers. And then you get to the Bills, and then it's kind of head scratching, because the team is very good. They re-signed Ronnie Staley, which was huge to have that left tackle position shored up and still kind of keep everybody in-house. The team is still really well held together. You go add Derrick Henry, you go add the second best running back in football, only behind Saquon Barkley. And it's just, I don't know. I think you could get a receiver, but I don't know if there's anybody that I would take here over, like, let's say, maybe shore up your offensive line a little bit more, or, maybe reach on a guy. But I mean, I like the roster as is. I know Vincent made some suggestions here. Will Johnson's on the board. I wouldn't hate that pick at all. I think it's fantastic, but I think they're in rare company among maybe the next couple teams to where they can afford to go get a guy that they really like. Which again, I don't know how Will Johnson's fallen as far as he has, but Ravens are good everywhere. Just maybe the rich get richer here.
Yeah, if Will Johnson ends up going to Baltimore, how can you not, or anyone that's left? I mean, imagine him being in Kansas City or Philadelphia, going to Detroit. God, they'd love him if he falls to them in Detroit. My gosh, that'd be Christmas and Halloween and Easter Sunday all on the same day, especially with all the bodies that they burned through last year in Detroit. But Baltimore, again, 13-5, not many mistakes. When they have one or two by week 5, they're not, and then they took off. Harbaugh does such a great job of just managing the momentum. However, as you mentioned, the playoffs.
Hot news.
You got to pick. Let's go.
So they go Malachi Starks.
Oh my goodness.
Malachi Starks. So maybe they said, hey, the formula is Georgia football defensive players. Maybe that's how you win in the postseason. Follow the Eagles mantra. But yeah, Malachi Starks with Kyle Hamilton, by the way. That's probably the best safety duo in the league right now. They got a couple of dogs back there. Now, well, one dog and they got a Fighting Irish, but they got some guys that can play safety now. There's some ball hawks too. Good Lord.
Love the pick simply because now Baltimore last year when they were struggling on the back end, remember they had to move Kyle Hamilton back more, playing deep in the deeper part of the field. Now they can move him up the line of scrimmage, and Malachi Starks can play the deep 7 of the field. And what that means is more plays to be made, playmakers all over the field defensively.
Yeah, but he can hit too. I mean, he's going to stop the run, and that may not be the divisional need right now, but 6'1", 205, runs a 4.5 flat, 40, ranked number 26 overall, right? So he's a value there for them, and right place, right time. Give me some more insight, Vincent or Brian, in terms of Malachi. He's won a national championship. He's played for Kirby, I think, especially as a secondary guy. A lot demanded out of him, and I think he's answered the bell every time, and one of those consistent players from a Georgia defensive perspective that makes you go, him and linebackers and safeties and corners and edge rushers. We've got a little bit of everything.
First game started as a true freshman against Oregon, 2 interceptions as an 18-year-old. I don't have to say no more. Back to you, Harp and Brian.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
I mean, Georgia's kind of become the staple of what Alabama was, right? If there's a guy that's playing and starting on that roster, it doesn't matter if it's 1 year, if it's 2 or 3 years, absolutely. But They produce, and they're playing against the top competition, and they're winning, right? So it's just success after success after success story of these guys being drafted in round 1. So if they keep doing what they're doing, obviously you're going to sit here and say, well, we want to get in on that, right? We keep alluding to the Eagles. They call them the Philadelphia Bulldogs on defense because they just got so many of them, and it works. And they're just I love Starks' game. He plays really, really well. He can cover. He can come up and play the run. He's not afraid to tackle either, which you love that in a defensive back. But I mean, I think this is a great pick for the Ravens. I really do. I think this it's their defensive back room now is really, really good. They got a lot of really solid guys that there's only one football to intercept, but they're going to have 3 or 4 guys that are just going to be all over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that we need to really take a serious look at today is that it's all about Kirby Smart. When he took the job in 2015, did y'all see this coming like this? No. I didn't. And if he's not the best coach in college football right now, I don't know where we need to turn to. But I think we start talking about all the players in Philadelphia from Georgia. Got to go all be to the man from Bainbridge. Kirby Smart, former Georgia great at the safety position. He has really done a hell of a job in turning that program around, man.
Well,
back to you, Harper.
Speaking about turning your program around, I'm looking at it from a negative perspective. Just a couple of years ago, we would feel quite differently that we haven't seen a Florida State player. We haven't seen anyone from USC. We've not seen a Boomer Sooner. We've not seen Clemson, right? But Georgia, Michigan, Texas,
Florida.
You're right. There's a reason why
Auburn.
No one from Auburn. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful to those universities. They have great players. Don't get me wrong, but they're not answering the bell in the same way that what Georgia has for the last 7 or 8 years. And what, 3 now? First rounders. And they're guys at other positions, the offensive line, for example. You're going to see a center, a guard, and a tackle end up going in the 2nd or 3rd round for Georgia. Both guards and a center, not a tackle this year. But they're going to put guys in the pros. Brian, you have an update? You're looking over it, and I'm thinking not yet?
I think Malachi Starks just got the longest hug with Goodell. I think I think he's got the longest hug of the night. So there's a lot of rocking too. It's an emotional one for him. Yeah.
Really?
Happy for him. Yeah.
It was a bro hug. That's okay. All right.
Yeah, because there's a quick story about that. When Malachi was in middle school, and I think he's from Jefferson County, his family was homeless for a while. But they stayed together, the mother, the father, and I believe his 2 sisters. So I can understand why it's emotional. He went through a lot from a story I read about, and the family stayed together.
Yep, dreams come true. And within a couple of days, with the slotting and all that, right, he'll know very well where his signing bonus and what his first 3 or 4 or 5 years of his contract will be. And he's such a good player that he's multimillionaire. He's gone from homeless because of his talent. Detroit's on the clock now, guys. Do you mind if we switch over to them? Is that all right?
No problem.
All right. Picking number 28, the 15-2 Detroit Lions. They've got $42.89 million under their cap. Wow. When you think about all the guys that they've had to sign in the last couple of years, Jared Goff is their top player right now, but they're 3rd in the league in terms of cap space. Defensive tackle, edge rusher. They need a guard. They need a center. They might need a wide receiver, so be careful with who's available from that perspective. But free agency, guys, by the way, they have 7 picks in this draft. They've signed cornerbacks, linebackers, defensive ends, more linebackers, another linebacker, a defensive tackle, an offensive tackle, running back. They've signed a lot of players to replace all the guys that they had from injury and a few guys that they're going to lose from a contractual perspective. But who has turned around their organization in less time than the Detroit Lions in the past 2 decades?
Got to give credit to Brad Holmes and his nickname, Mr. I'ma bite your kneecap off, Mr. Dan Campbell.
Dan Campbell.
Did you see that coming when after he had that press conference when he was hired as head coach and he said that comment? And I remember somebody else said it was the most foolish comment I ever seen from a head coach. But really, Did y'all see that coming with Dan Campbell, him building that culture like he has done in Detroit? Be honest.
No.
Based on the history, no, I couldn't. Yeah, because they just hadn't turned it around.
But he changed the locker room first and the culture there. We're not going to do the things wrong that we've done before, and we're going to start with me. And that's the thing. And as a former player, you look at him when he's wearing his uniform from when he played. He's a bad man. I'm going to tell you right now. And he's just able to say, we're going to do it differently, and they did. And I mentioned this earlier, guys, and I'm sorry to interrupt and take as much time as I have. Offensive line, first rounder, third rounder, first rounder. Okay, they picked quite differently than others did. We're going to take our time. We're going to get a quarter. We're going to lose our quarterback. We're going to bring in another guy, but we're going to protect him.
Harper, hot news.
So they stay with the trenches, but it's on the other side. They get defensive tackle Tyleik Williams from Ohio State.
Wow.
That is their selection at 28. So there's something Dan Campbell says we're going to go first round defense or offensive line every year. And if you don't like it, that's too bad.
Hey, and as Logan said earlier, Tyleik cannot wear any of his OSU stuff.
Yeah.
When he goes to training camp.
Keep that at home. Get that out of here. No, sir.
Yes, sir. Very good pick. Very good football player. A lot of people really was talking highly for him being from what I was reading, top of the second round type player, but not surprised in the first round and him going playing beside Aiden Hutchinson. That's going to be interesting. Ohio State and Michigan guy on the same side on the defensive ball for the Lions.
Well, they brought in Marcus Davenport as an edge or an end guy. They gave him a 1-year deal. Roy Lopez, Levi Ozenwariaki. I'm saying that wrong. They've got a couple of linebackers I mentioned. They brought in 4 cornerbacks, right? So they had to shore up some things in the back end during the free agency period. But this is obviously a move. They got a couple of edge rushers, Al-Quad Muhammad, Pat O'Connell, or some other defensive guys. They re-signed Dan Skipper too, so I think that helped them being one of those versatile linemen that can play in multiple positions, which allowed them to go from an offensive line to a defensive focus. And obviously, Tyleik is the guy that is going to match the bill for them there.
And also, they gave the bag to Mr. Kerry Joseph, making him, I believe, the highest paid safety in the game, if I'm not mistaken. I think they signed him yesterday, on Tuesday.
Okay. Well, the cap number that I had at $42 million, that was from earlier in the week. I did that Monday. So that's going to change. But still, guess what? You can give them a bag because you've got 42 bags really to save for your lineup. And Tyleik Williams, Brian, any perspective on him and what he was able to do? Obviously a national champion, a guy that really shored and made it very difficult for any opponent, especially on a Big Ten level, to be able to run against the Buckeye defense.
He's 6'3", 334, and his 40 time is sub 4.7. Excuse me. That's for a guy his size, he can move around really, really well. He was. You look at what Ohio State did. We kind of wrote him off after the Michigan game, but he was instrumental in the playoff. They were very, very good up front, very stingy up front, and I think he was at the forefront of that. And I think that's a big reason why. I think the Lions looked at him and they said, hey, we like this kid a lot. We know we're kind of going to enemy lines to take him, but we think he helps our football team a lot here. And I think he probably fits the attitude they're trying to build success, right? I think that's what Dan Campbell's looking a lot like. Hey, guys, we're not losing anymore. You know what I mean? We're going to turn this around. We're going to win. We're bringing in guys who've won, right? You trade Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff, which I know that was at the time worked out really well for both teams. But, Jared Goff had been to a Super Bowl. He had won a lot of games. So they said, hey, we're going to change the culture. We're going to do so. We're bringing guys that win. You got another guy who does so here.
He needs a little bit of work. For example, the one sentence that I'll read for you guys. The team that drafts Williams is getting a rare athlete for the position who brings a legitimate 3-down potential if his pass rushing improves. So I think they'll work on that right now. Now that he's there, I think he's got a plane ticket to catch in the morning, and he'll be out there, and I'm sure he'll be working, watching film, getting signed, and then developing a second or maybe even a third move. But the speed that you mentioned, Brian, that 4.68 is what he was timed at the combine. A guy that big, weighing 325 plus. Are you kidding me? I imagine they probably get him down to 315 or maybe 310, so he can go basically from tackle to tackle. But that's a great pick.
Detroit, like I said, they're getting stronger. Going to be the toughest division in football. The Bears are going to be competitive. The Packers are going to be competitive. The Lions are going to be competitive, and the Packers. Possibility could be 3 teams that come out of the division to make the playoffs.
Again.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, sir.
Well, a team that surprised everybody is on the clock now, and that's the Washington Redskins. They picked, second overall last year? Second, right? They got Jaden Daniels, and I think they had about 400 or 500 other picks that they brought in as well. Dan Quinn, new to the organization. I honestly think it was maybe 10 or maybe 11. I'm not exactly sure of what they had last year, but this year they've only got 5.
Mr. LeBel, hot news.
We got already? Goodness gracious. All
So
right.
they like Jaden Daniels, and they like to keep him upright. So they're taking Oregon tackle Josh Connerly Jr. at
Smart
pick 29.
pick. Very smart pick. Simply because they already got some offensive weapons in the offseason. When inside Deebo Samuel, the mic has dropped. I don't think they need to get anybody else to give Jaden Daniels any other help offensively.
Yeah, I like this as well. For the reason that you mentioned, Brian, I think you're kind of I'm not copycatting what Detroit did, but you've got a guy that obviously from a team that only won 2 or 3 games to going to the playoffs and winning 12 last year. We don't want that to be a surprise anymore, but we better keep our quarterback upright. And the best guy available from the tackle position is gone now. Oregon's tackle Conley. He had a nice career there at Oregon too.
Played
A lot of
really
wins.
well.
A lot of wins.
So Josh is 6'4", he's 315, he ran a 5.05 40. Just watch him, and you'll see everything that you need to do. Right, he got great feet. His hand position is good. Does he get beat around the edge? Yeah, everybody does, but not as much as some of the others that are out there. And he's a good run blocker. He will definitely be a guy. And I'm wondering if he doesn't start right away, and maybe he does, but the guy that they was starting, they got 2 tackles obviously starting. If you do a little bit more like what I've seen Philadelphia, what Buffalo does, Detroit does it quite a bit, where you bring in a tackle, a guard, and you have them play the tight end position or a wing, and you run the ball up the middle and you gain 4 or 5 yards. You keep your guys on the bench in tuned. You keep them ready. They're always wanting to play because they're going to get a chance. The tight ends come out for a play or 2, no big deal. But it really brings a cohesiveness to your offensive unit, especially if they're successful like the 3 teams that I've mentioned in the past. Maybe Washington ends up doing that to combat that tush push that Philadelphia has.
Yes, sir.
All right, Buffalo's on the clock. We didn't get to talk anything about Washington. They did it already. Brian, you'll keep me in tune with that.
Yes.
Vincent, 13-4 last year. The Bills need cornerback, wide receiver, defensive tackle, edge rushers, and safeties. They have 10 picks right now, so I think that they're going to be pretty happy picking here at number 30. But advancing to the AFC Championship game, obviously, as they did, they've only got $6 million under the cap. That's 31st, right? There's only one team that has less. We've already talked about that a little bit. But they pick up Joey Bosa. That was a big trade on defense or a big free agency pickup. Give me your thoughts here about the Buffalo Bills.
I think obviously they're going to go defense. You got 3 players still good on the board. Our man Will Johnson is still out there. Jaheed Campbell is still out there. Then Maxwell Harrison, the guy that ran a crazy 4.28 at the combine out of Kentucky. I think one of those 3 gentlemen is going to be a Buffalo Bill in the next few minutes. Back to you, Hawk.
Yeah, interesting selection. Our Kentucky cornerback, but Will Johnson slipping as much as he did. That's a surprise, Brian. I'm not sure if there's, if he was smoking or drinking or punched a girl, and I'm not saying he did. Please don't write your cards and letters assuming that, but something incredibly wrong must be a rumor mill in the NFL for Will to be sitting out as long as he has been.
I mean, I'm trying to look and see if I can find anything. Maybe there's like an undisclosed injury or something, that maybe they found during a physical or whatever it would be. Because, like, I mean, everyone has him either as the consensus number 2 or number 3 guy. The only guy that's really above him consistently is Travis Hunter, who went second overall. So I said earlier, I said there's, having elite shutdown type cornerback play is very much at a premium. And for whatever reason, it's just he's not. They don't like it. Maybe it's just, he run a 4.56 40. I know it's not a 4.4 like everybody wants, but he's a bigger guy too. He's more physical. I mean, he's done it at the highest level. Go ask anybody that's played against him at Ohio State how slow this guy is. I guarantee you, nobody's going to say he's slow. He's physical. He plays really well. Maybe Buffalo right here is just like, hey, yeah, if no one else wants it, we'll happily take him at 30. But it's hard to see him falling out of the next 3 picks.
But they said he had some nagging injuries this year. He missed a couple of games. I don't know if that hurt him or not, but I'm very surprised he's fallen as far as Mr. Harper LeBel just stayed along with you, Brian. I mean, to me, he's the best available player on the board. But we got 3 more teams left in the draft for the first round tonight. And Buffalo, like I said, they signed Joey Bosa to play along with Ed Oliver. They're a pretty good team. We know they started at the quarterback position in Regina MVP last year, and they was, 2 or 3 players from going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So if there is something that is going around regarding Will Johnson, Shavon Revel Jr. out of Western Carolina, Benjamin Morrison, we've talked about him a little bit here tonight, cornerback out of Notre Dame.
Yes,
first time we talk about Notre Dame, really, again, a team that goes to the national championship game, and very few of their guys are being looked at least from a first-round perspective. They'll have some guys that go, but surprise there. Remember, I mentioned just a few moments ago how Clemson, how Florida State, Florida, for example, to schools that notoriously were having 4 or 5 guys picked every draft. But Maxwell Harrison, you mentioned him a little while ago. Comment on him. Here he is, 6'1", 186, so another light guy, but he's a little bit taller than Hunter, 4'2", 840. That's the thing about that just jumps off the chart, that he's anything below 4'3" from a cornerback is just lightning speed.
very good football player. Like I said, played under Mark Stoops, one of the Stoop brothers. Coach Stoops talks highly of him. Say he was a Georgia coach. Very quality guy. Nothing that I've seen during the draft process to do anything different. Coming to the combine, there was people questioning how fast is he. Well, what was that again, Mr. Harper?
4.28.
Okay, enough said. Enough said. Yep. You got to have elite speed to play in the league at the corner position in the National Football League. I think Mr. Harrison checked all the boxes there.
Yeah, he'd be the first Kentucky Wildcat here in the first round in quite some time. But, that kind of speed, someone's going to want it. But are you waiting until the second or third round for that? Obviously, we'll find out in a little bit. Buffalo's on the clock right now. Again, picking number 30. I mentioned their cap space. They don't have a whole heck of a lot. And part of the reason for that is $36.3 million to the 29-year-old quarterback Josh Allen for them. And I mentioned Joey Bosa. They've signed 2 defensive ends, a couple of cornerbacks as well during the offseason, a guard, a running back, and a wide receiver from the offensive perspective. Joey Bosa, when you lose Von Miller and you replace him with Joey Bosa, I think that's a fairly even trade, if that makes sense. You're losing a really good player, but you're going to pick up one that is a little bit younger. Bosa in and of itself. Go ahead, right? Vincent, go ahead.
On the question with Joey Bosa is, can he stay healthy?
Yeah.
If he's healthy, he's going to be a very productive football player.
Yep.
So I have the pick. The Bills go DB, but they take Maxwell Harrison instead of Will Johnson at pick 30.
Oh, okay.
So we were just talking about that. Yeah, Maxwell Harrison. They like the speed too. They like his 40 time as well, apparently. So they take him at 30 over Will Johnson. Also, not to overshadow that, the Eagles and the Chiefs are swapping picks. So 32 and 31 are swapping. So now the Eagles are trading pick 32 and pick 164 to the Chiefs for pick 31. So the Chiefs will now pick 32. I'm sure the Chiefs were wishing they'd pick 32 off the rip and wouldn't have to trade for it, but, it is what it is.
And that means the Eagles want a player real bad that they've been eyeing. So who could it be? Will Johnson, Luther Burden III, Josh Simmons,
They wouldn't go Mike Green here, right? I feel like they got
Mike
enough. I
Green.
feel like they got enough defensive ends, right? Jeez.
I mean, it's about building depth.
Yeah, I
I
like Will Johnson. I still like Will Johnson though. I don't know.
You brought up a good point, Brian. Brandon Graham just retired.
Yeah.
He just retired. Replacement.
Yeah. Maybe Mike Green is the guy here. I'm not 100% certain, but I think Mel Kiper's big board right now, 1, 2, and 3 still available are Shador, Johnson, and Green in that order. So I don't think the Eagles need a quarterback. I think they're very happy with their quarterback situation. But Bills get Maxwell Harrison Jr. at pick 30.
That's a good pick for them. Cornerback was one of the immediate needs, or safety. I think you get a guy that 4.28 in Buffalo in December is probably a 4.3 something, right? So it's still faster than what just about anybody else can run, but a little light. But other than that, he's going to be a guy that fits in quite well there with a really good football team that only has a couple of specific needs, if that makes sense.
Hot news.
Here we go.
No, I was just going to say, Vincent, what conference he play in?
Oh, yeah. How about that, Vincent?
Hey, I'm gonna keep saying it every evening till I die, till I turn 85. The SEC.
There you
but
go.
You know, it's a lot of fans here in the local Metro Atlanta area. I know a lot of people from the Midwest, such as Chicago, Indianapolis, out here where I live in Douglasville, and they try to tell me, based on the fact that the Big Ten has won back-to-back national championships with Michigan, Ohio State, that right now they the best football conference. And all I have to say is look at the draft board, baby.
Well, I got another one for you. The Eagles pick is in, and we're staying in the SEC, and it is Jihad Campbell at pick 31 for the Philadelphia Eagles. So there you go. We're staying in the SEC. There you go.
Explain that to me, guys. Why would you move up one spot when you know that it is – what was Kansas City thinking when they get another asset? I love that, but
right.
Why would the Eagles do that? Brian, remember a couple years ago, and I was here in the house when the Bears moved up one spot to get their quarterback, and it just boggled my mind. Why is Philadelphia? They didn't need to do this, did they? Unless they want to get rid of their.
Maybe someone in the Chiefs war room leaked something, maybe purposefully. Maybe they're thinking, hey, we're going to take Jihad Campbell knowing the Eagles want him, but now we don't really want him, and we're still going to get our guy at 32, and now we get an additional pay. It could be a plethora of things. It could just be if the Eagles didn't want to take the risk, and it was a very, very I wouldn't say it was the most costly trade in the world, right? Moving from 32 to 31 is only going to run you one pick in like round 4. So I think they're okay with it.
But I'm going to say this. I can understand a little bit why the Eagles done it, because Nakobe Dean has been banged up.
Yeah.
He's had some very serious injuries. To me, that's a perfect fit. You put Jihad Campbell, who can play all the linebacker positions, put him in the middle with that speed behind Jalen Carter. You got something very special there.
Yeah,
I like see why the Eagles jumped on that, because of Nakobe Dean has not been healthy. And even though Zach Bond played real well for him last year, before he got there, he was I want to say, journeyman football player. Let's be real.
Yeah.
He just had a very good season. To me, very excellent pick. That's just me personally, gentlemen.
Okay. And I'm just asking a simple question. If my Kansas City Chief room leaked out that we want to get Campbell, and he ends up going to Philadelphia, and you end up getting an extra pick out of that, well done, right? Well played.
Yes.
Kansas City on the clock, 15-2. Obviously, they went to the Super Bowl. Their needs basically are edge rusher, defensive tackle, cornerback, running back, and offensive tackle in no specific order. But they don't need a whole heck of a lot, right? Because they've been to the Super Bowl how many times in the last 5 years? Goodness gracious. $13.56 million in cap space. That's 26 overall. They have 8 picks here in this draft. Their next pick after this one here will be number 2. I'm sorry, in the second round, it'll be number 31 in the second round. They'll be picking 31st in each one of the drafts, the rounds coming up. There's a lot of talent that's out there at cornerback. They need a cornerback, running back. This is where you wonder, how did New England do it so well for so many years? They just took the best guy that fell back to them. Who's still on the board, Brian? Obviously, besides Johnson, there's a couple other guys that are going to be some great picks for them that are still available. That we'll find out about the next 2.5-3 minutes.
Well, what's interesting is the last time the Chiefs went to Super Bowl and lost, when the Buccaneers really exposed their offensive line. And I think the Eagles kind of did the same thing, where the Chiefs' offensive line looked inferior to what the Eagles. Now, to be fair, the Eagles' defensive front is probably the best in football. But if you're going to win the Super Bowl, which is probably the Chiefs' goal every year, as long as Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are at the helm, you gotta revamp that. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they go offensive line here to try to shore up, because it really did look bad in the Super Bowl. They did get abused up front. And obviously you want to keep your $500 million quarterback upright, as every team does. But I mean, like if they want to go edge rusher, like I said, Mike Green is still there. Will Johnson, who we've called his name. Hey, he's still here for the last 15 picks, it seems, and he's still there. Yeah. Jahad Campbell was just picked. So obviously, but he's another guy I would have said he's still there.
Josh Simmons.
Yeah. They got a lot of guys that are still there. A lot of guys on the board. Maybe they
Warren.
had their guy picked out. That's why they're willing to swap with Philly, because they thought he'd be there at 32 anyways. But, you can never go wrong. Keep your quarterback upright, especially if it's Patrick Mahomes. So I wouldn't be shocked if they go O-line here. Maybe they do something unconventional, go like receiver. I don't know.
Luther Burden's another guy, Vincent. Kansas City, first of all, your impressions of him, and then we'll talk a little bit about the depth of who's still available and where Kansas City might go.
On my board, I had him as a first-round talent. You go back, very productive player in the toughest conference, all of college football, the SEC. Very, very excellent football player in the slot. But, gentlemen, we Ray Charles here this evening. What are we doing here? What happened in the Super Bowl? Offensive line with the Chiefs, man. Josh Simmons. Ain't no question about it. I don't care who left on the board. You need an offensive line, because Patrick Mahomes was abused in the Super Bowl. And I think sacked 6-7 times? We're not Ray Charles this evening. Just doing the show here on 100 Yards of Football. Offensive line this evening, baby. Come on, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. My opinion, you take the best offensive lineman available, and I'm saying Josh Simmons.
Yeah.
Back to you, Hawk.
Brian, go ahead.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, that's what they did last time. They had Pro Bowl caliber players. They said, you know what? It didn't cut it against the best team in the NFC. So if we have to get better, if we have to make changes, we'll do that. I do look at that kind of. I know. Look, Rashee Rice wasn't healthy, right? That's a different story. Rashee Rice was, because remember he got the game against us. I mean, he was just unstoppable. He was phenomenal. So you have to wonder. Maybe they look at that as well and say, well, we don't, if something does happen to him where he is banged up or someone else is, or maybe he gets locked down, whatever it might be, we want to have a different guy. Travis Kelce's getting kind of older too. So, he slowed down a little bit last year. Maybe you want to take some of the load off of him. As far as, because I mean, again, he was very slow start, but once Rice went down, he took on a bulk of the receiving opportunities as well again. So I don't know. Could be any of those two things.
I know a certain player that they was in love with. They had him in for 2 visits over the past month. That's Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU, Jason Taylor's son.
Yeah.
They really like him.
It could be, again, yeah. I mean, you can never have enough weapons for Patrick Mahomes, and there's a lot of different things they could do.
But me personally, offensive line.
You think they go Shedeur Sanders here?
that here on 100 Yards of Football, that door has closed. It's going to be very interesting for round 2 tomorrow.
Well, if you're going to say, well, the icing on the cake for the pick of why Philadelphia moved up 1 spot to get a guy that Kansas City apparently wasn't interested in at all, why they would do that. Now, the only thing that would make sense is if somebody else was going to leapfrog in front of them. If you had a New York again, or you had Cleveland or Tennessee that was willing to move up a couple of spots, maybe the Raiders, or who knows. But Philadelphia said, no, we're not going to let that happen. Jahid Campbell became an Eagle just a few minutes ago, and now we're still waiting for Kansas City, who moved back one spot from 31 to 32 to have their pick, and maybe they're entertaining possible pick. And that's what the New England Patriots did so well during all those Belichick and Brady years, when they had the 31 or 32 pick, and they would trade back 5 spots and get another, another third rounder, and then they trade up and then trade back again, and before you know it, they had 7 or 8 picks, all in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, and they built their lineup with really solid players that weren't first rounders, but guys that were hungry to be like first rounders. And the success year after year, in my opinion, was manifested in playoff appearances and Super Bowl wins.
I heard the show The Pivot. When they first started, they had Chad Johnson on as a guest. And remember, he was with the New England team. They played in the second Super Bowl. Well, he got cut before the second team. They played New York twice in the Super Bowl, the second New York Giants Super Bowl. And I remember what he said on that show that day. He said, man, I went to New England, and they do it differently up there. And the one thing that he told me that said in the show, in the comments, were this. He said, man, when I got there, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady were cursing each other out. Belichick was into Brady like he was like an undrafted free agent. And Brady was back at him, and he said he knew it was different. It's just different in New England. It's what I call commitment to excellence. If your star player can take criticism from your head coach like that, then everybody else is going to fall in line. That's all I need to hear about the New England's culture up there. And Chad Johnson said he saw that up close and personal.
Yeah.
And he had never been with no organization in the league that ran their operation like that. And say Bill Belichick, the one thing that he told him when he came to New England, he was brutally honest.
Yeah.
You're going to get these certain passes. You got to come in. You got to play this certain role. You're going to have to block. And Chad Johnson said he respected that and he understand why New England wins so much.
Yeah. Well, you needed to know the rules. You needed to know who your teammates were. You needed to know who you were going against each and every week, because Belichick would call you out for that.
Yeah.
There was one press conference. I think they had beaten Houston.
Hot news. Hot news.
Josh Simmons. Chiefs go Josh Simmons. So we were right on the money there. Right on the money with that one.
Vincent.
We did an okay job tonight, right? 6 or 7 times we've been like, yeah, this makes sense.
Hey,
and
excellent. We just did them the other day, but I would say this, hey, it's all about everybody being prepared, everybody knowing their jobs. As Mr. LeBel, Harper said, it's about doing your job and being structured. Everybody can't be heroes. If you want to be a hero, you got to put the talent up front. As I go back to the movie Rockstar with, what's my boy, Mark Wahlberg, 2001, when Jennifer Aniston was his girlfriend and also his manager, and he broke up with this band. And Jennifer Aniston told the other band member, I'd like to be your manager, but unfortunately, Rob, all the talent just walked out of the door. So Mr. Harper LeBel is the guy that got to drive the bus here 100 yards of football. Nobody else needs to try to be a hero. When that happens, everything gets messed up. Everything gets unconstructed. The reason I'm going to say this, if I can, I'm going to tell you how much this is really serious tonight, and appreciate y'all outstanding show this evening. I'm finna pull up the numbers right now here on our Facebook page. This is where we really haven't done any marketing. We just had Mr. LeBel do an NFL draft promo that I ran like 3 times a week leading up to the draft. Now, no promotion on Facebook. I'm going to tell you the numbers. Give me 1 second. I can tell you this and broke the record. Okay. As we end the draft show this evening,
What do you got?
2,800.
How about that?
It's pretty good.
2,800.
It's not bad.
And it's probably by the time we wake up in the morning, might be close to 4,000 or 5,000.
Nice. Very nice.
That's pretty humbling, Vincent, from where we've been when we started with just under 50 people watching our very first show or so. So thank you to our audience. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you to give us some of your time. I know with election coverage, for example, there were a lot of shows that had nothing to do with network that people were just putting out and they're taking off. And so this is an aspect of that where the podcast world is changing before our very eyes, and people are going, hey, if you're good out there, I'm not going to watch the network. I'd like to watch it, but I'm going to listen to something else. And with Logan not being here right now, my salute to him, to you, Brian, for doing a great job with not only the stats, but what we view. And this is so simple and basic. We don't have a budget, right? We're putting this together with baling wire and duct tape. So thank you for that. That's great news, Vincent. We appreciate that.
Well, I always say this is that it's very simple. It's easy like shooting marbles. When you put talented people together, good things happen. But when talented people get together, somebody has to understand their role. Somebody's going to be better leading. Somebody's going to be better as a lead host. Somebody's going to be better as a researcher. Somebody's going to be better speaking. But once everybody understands it, then what you have a very successful product that can make us what the end goal is. Money like the OJs.
Well, Brian, great job of filling in the way that you did after Logan had to leave. Remember, Logan has to get up at 4 a.m. To do the show. He stuck around. He waited for the Falcon pick. But what surprised you here? We had 3 trades, if I'm not mistaken, right? We had 3 different moves. The Falcons were a part of one of those. Give us your perspective here on the first round. There's 32 happy men right now in the world, and there'll be a few more that are going to be happy tomorrow that weren't happy here tonight, but they'll be taken care of. No problem.
I really like what the Falcons did. The last time they kind of overcompensated, if you remember, it was either 5 years ago when they went double dipped offensive line in the first round, where they go and get Caleb McGreary and then they go and get Chris Lindstrom, where they say, hey, listen, we need help. We think we have 2 guys right here that can help us win. If we got to trade back into it, that's fine. And that might have been one of Thomas Dimitrov's best drafts, is you get 2 guys. McGreery's not the best player in the world, but he's a phenomenal starter. He's been there for a long time. And Chris Lindstrom might be the second best guard in football, maybe first now with Zach Martin leaving. But they overcompensated in the pass rush situation, which I'm totally fine with. I also really like the pick for the Ravens. I think Malachi Starks was a phenomenal pick. I think realistically, all the back guys, the bookend, I'm going to call them the bookend teams, right? The teams in the front and the teams in the back. After every draft, we love it because, right, you get the really good teams. Of course, they draft this guy and they get better. And then the teams that were kind of bad picking early, well, you get a great talent. It's all perspective. We're throwing our opinions out there. We won't know until they hit the field here in a couple months. But I really like the Ravens. I really like the Falcons. And there's no draft that I really hate right now, if I'm being honest.
Well, I think the New York Giants also, let's include them. And really, they helped themselves tremendously today by being aggressive and taking advantage of a situation that they said, you know what, somebody's going to pull the trigger and it's going to be us. Yep. Vincent, your final thoughts here on the completion of day 1 of the 2025 draft.
First and foremost, I want to give the staff, you gentlemen, Logan, Mr. Jeremiah Long, Ronnie Keebler, Mr. Stephen Travers, so many people for making this happen tonight. Very successful night. Very simple with me. I'm happy my Dallas Cowboys used their common sense tonight and got a pretty good football player, offensive guard. Kudos to you, Mr. Jerry Jones. And to the Atlanta Falcons, I got to give respect to Terry Fontenot. You needed pass rush help, and you was very aggressive, and you moved up. And you got 2 players I think can help you get after the pass. And there's a vision whereas the Tampa Bay Bucks got better at the wide receiver position, getting Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. Excellent evening, and I want to say thank you to you gentlemen, and it's been phenomenal. Went by pretty smooth and fast. The mic didn't even drop this evening.
Yeah.
Well, we've been on for almost 4 hours, so
Yeah, I don't even
is.
feel like 4 hours. Do you gentlemen feel like 4 hours?
I feel all right. I don't
Yeah,
know if I can do another 4, but I feel okay.
yeah, I feel fine.
Yeah, I'm. It's going to be a great rest of the draft. There are a lot of interesting players that weren't picked, and Josh Simmons was right there at the very end. He gets to be a first rounder. Congratulations to him. And I think that Will Johnson, Mike Green, and Shedeur Sanders will not have to wait very long for tomorrow to be a great day for them as well. I appreciate the opportunity to do this. Brian and I working together. We've never done a draft before. I know you've been doing drafts now for years, but for us to be included as a part of that, and we hope it was entertaining. We hope that we had some things where, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. Oh, wait a second. Now it kind of does make some sense. And that's what we're doing. We're just trying to get a look at the picks and how your favorite team will be a little bit better because of that. So getting a chance to just basically sift through the dust and then watch it settle before our very eyes and comment on that. What a joy it is! But
I want to correct you on one thing. This is only our second draft show we ever done.
Understood. But I'm saying you've covered drafts now for 5, 6, 7 years with 100 yards of football.
Yeah. But actually doing a draft like this, 3 hours is only the second time. Last year was our first time.
Okay.
And this year, it's been probably, I would say this may be ending up after we get all the numbers in the best show we ever done here on 100 yards of football.
Well, that's awesome. The brand itself is growing and good things. We get to talk about a lot of different stuff that's out there, but it seems like the league itself has always got something that we can discuss. And the next things we'll be talking about will be the beginning of training camp. Yes, guys need to get signed. Yes, there'll be OTAs. There'll be changes like that. But really the next biggest move for the NFL is their training camp and getting those first preseason games in. All right, Brian, anything else before we say goodbye for the night?
I think you guys hit the nail on the head. It was a great show. I had a lot of fun, and thank you. Hey, everybody that tuned in, thank you guys so much. We do really appreciate it because we do try to put a lot of work into this. We're like you said, we're holding it together as much as we can, but there is a lot of work that goes into this, a lot of pre-draft stuff, a lot of homework. And all you guys tuning in, all the likes and shares, everything, we appreciate the heck out of it. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, before we go, Vincent, one more thing from you.
Pig, Suey, caught them Hawks.
Hey, how many Razorbacks got picked here in the first round this year?
0.
How many from Colorado State? I got none of my Colorado State Rammies either.
We're gonna have more to go tomorrow. Landon Jackson.
Yeah, that's right. We'll be looking forward to tomorrow.
But I got the receiver Torrey Horton that might go in the second round.
Well, there's still some first rounders that are on the board, and we'll see how that works out. But hey, thank you for tuning in, everybody. We really appreciate it. As Brian said, 100 yards of football. We're growing and doing everything we can. And we're very grateful for you being a part of this show. So for Vincent Turner, for Brian LeBel, for Logan Landers, I'm Harper LeBel saying thank you for tuning into the 2025 draft show that we have here on 100 Yards of Football. Have a great evening, everybody. We appreciate it.